Welcome, everyone. We're just getting set up here just to make sure we're broadcasting and recording, etc. Just give us a minute, please. And we are live on YouTube. All right, so I call the June 9th, June regular monthly planning board meeting to order. Okay, so I gotta see, the first up on the agenda is Durst Corporation application. I don't see, okay, I see them on the second screen. All right, Sarah, are you talking or is Frank talking or?
I think it will be me tonight, and perhaps Warren. Good evening,
I was just looking for you. Hi, Sarah. I didn't see.
I got my hair pulled back because it's too hot today. My incognito. Michael, do you want me just to jump in?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Perfect. So good evening, members of the planning board. Nice to see you tonight. The only action before you on the Durst project is to schedule a special meeting for June 23rd. It's a couple weeks from now. I'm going to just share my screen briefly and sort of walk you through where we are in the process and the next steps, so you sort of understand what's coming and where you are with this. So let me just pull up the memo. I did submit a memo that hopefully you received last week that kind of walks through the next steps and where we are in the process. As you'll recall, at your last meeting in May, you did declare your intent to serve as lead agency for the state environmental quality review process. You declared your intent on May 13th. That does require a 30-day coordinated review period. It was sent to all of the involved agencies. They have 30 days to get back to you and state whether they agree with you being lead agency or if they want to be lead agency. If we don't hear from them, that's a de facto agreement of the planning board becoming the lead agency. I believe last I heard, we'd heard from a few of the involved agencies that they didn't have a problem with it. I don't believe we've heard from Mylan, but we're not expecting that they will contest your lead agency status. So you will become lead agency, barring any unforeseen, anyone else contesting, on or about June 13th or 14th, so next week. And at that point, you'll be in a position to move forward with the next step in the SEQR process, which is making a determination of significance. And what that means is you will, at your next meeting on June 23rd, and we'll talk through a little bit more specifically about what will be involved in that meeting, but you will review what's called the Environmental Assessment Form Part 2 and 3, which is under the purview of the town to prepare and the planning board to prepare and review. And that really sets forth the components of the project that you deem have the potential to have significant impacts. And so it really sets forth the issues that will ultimately be reviewed in the EIS and sort of helps you make that determination of significance. And in this case, we're assuming that you will be adopting what's called a positive declaration, which means the SEQR process will continue and the applicant will be required to prepare a full environmental impact statement. While the name is a little bit misleading, a positive declaration does not mean the process is ending. In this case, that's a negative declaration. So we're assuming that the board will be adopting a positive declaration based on the part 2 and 3 of the EAF, which we will be working with Warren on preparing that for your meeting on the 23rd. The next step really is the scoping process. And you'll see that attached to my memo, I did include a one-pager that just sort of is a primer on what the scoping process is, and we can talk about that in a minute. Following that is the draft environmental impact statement, followed by a final environmental impact statement and findings. And so you can see we're really still at the very beginning of this process. In terms of the next meetings tonight, we're just going to introduce scoping. What is scoping? What is the purpose of scoping and how it fits into the process? And then the planning board will need to set that special meeting for June 23rd. At the June 23rd meeting, what we're anticipating the actions would be for your consideration would be the planning board would declare themselves lead agency for the SEQR review. You will also, as I said, review the EAF parts 2 and 3 and ultimately adopt that positive declaration that requires the preparation of the environmental impact statement, and then set the scoping session for July 21st and 31st. We're anticipating that the July 21st scoping session would be a virtual meeting in the evening. I believe that is I can't remember the day of the week, Thursday perhaps. And then the July 31st scoping session would be the second one, would be an in-person meeting on a Saturday morning, I think approximately between 10 and 12. Yes, so the scoping session really is an integral piece or part of scoping, and we'll move down to that piece in one moment. Sorry about the scrolling, it's very slow. So this is the schedule. We've submitted this before. As you can see, we're right in this very first step of establishing lead agency and then moving our way through the process. So the next step is this determination of significance, followed by the scoping process, which is now, as of, I believe, 2018, mandatory for all environmental impact statements. Scoping used to be optional, but the states deemed it such an integral part of the environmental review process that it is now mandatory. So what is scoping? So you can see in this just sort of outline, and this all comes from, if you're interested, from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Seeker Handbook, and I did include a link to the handbook in the memo. It's a couple hundred pages, but it really has so much detail and information about the Seeker process. If you are interested or have questions, there's a lot of resources there. But this is all sort of pulled from there. And so the purpose of scoping is really to develop a written document that outlines the topics and analysis of potential environmental impacts of a proposed action, which in this case is the conservation subdivision, and then the resort as an alternative. And these are the issues, the environmental issues that will be addressed in the draft environmental impact statement. And one of the primary purposes of scoping really is to narrow issues and ensure that the EIS will be concise, accurate, and complete. It also is a process to ensure public participation in the development of the things to be studied in the EIS. It's really creating that table of contents, a very detailed table of contents of the issues to be studied. It also permits the inclusion of relevant substantive public issues in the final written scope. And so the way that scoping works is the applicant has already submitted a draft scope. It was in their application that they submitted back in April. So we have that will be going up on the town's website. And that document is the draft scope. It then goes to the scoping session. We hear comments from the public, the involved agencies, interested agencies, and your own consultants will be preparing comments. We will review everything, and then it is upon us and the planning board to create a final scoping document that sort of addresses all of the public concern, the reasonable public concern. A part of the scope also requires that you have a section that states all the reasons why you may not include a comment that was raised. One of the things that's important to sort of note about scoping is that it is not a public hearing. It is not the appropriate venue for venting about a project or giving the planning board your opinion from the public's perspective about how they may feel about a project. It is really the time to hear about the relevant environmental issues that the public would like to see analyzed in the EIS. So the purpose, again, is not a public hearing. It's a forum to raise potential environmental issues or suggest specific studies, protocols, and alternatives. And scoping comments are not the appropriate forum, as I said, to advocate for or against a specific decision to be made at the end of this process by the planning board. Some of the objectives of scoping, again, are to identify the significant environmental conditions and resources which may be impacted, is to focus on the relevant environmental impacts, lists available resources and sources of information. So for including, what is the source of the traffic data? How are they going to collect that data? Will the EIS be based on, natural resource surveys, and what is the source of that data? Sort of defining what all the methodologies will be. This also includes the definition of reasonable alternatives. You must include at a minimum a no action, but in this case, the draft scope does include quite a few others. And there may be others that the public or the planning board would like to see included. And then finally, looking at specific possible mitigation measures to mitigate some of those potential impacts that may be raised. And ultimately, once the final scope is adopted, the applicant will then take that scope and write the EIS to the scope. And ultimately, prior to the planning board adopting or accepting that the EIS, the draft EIS is complete, we will look back at the scope and sort of compare the scope to the draft EIS and make sure that everything that is included in the scope is ultimately included in the EIS. Now, acceptance of the draft EIS does not mean you agree with the planning board. It's not an agreement of all of the information, because that can be addressed during the public review process on the EIS, but you have to, at a minimum, ensure that all of the things that were included in that scope are ultimately included in the draft EIS. So that's a very quick overview of scoping. We will have a couple months, June and July, to review the scope, and then have the 2 scoping sessions, and ultimately bring the scope back to the board for adoption, perhaps in August or September. With that, Warren, I don't know if I've left anything out.
I think that's pretty complete. There is your outline is great and describes the process. Just want to make sure that the board members understand that the draft scope that was already submitted, prepared by the applicant, is part of their submission. It might be online, but it's attachment B, the draft scoping document, and it's a pretty complete document. It doesn't mean that we're not going to be adding to that, but it's a good idea for the board members to review that in anticipation of the meeting. And I think the emphasis is that the input that we get at the scoping sessions is not input on the project itself, but it's input on what the lead agency, which will be the planning board, wants to see discussed and treated and analyzed in the draft environmental impact statement. So hopefully the comments that we get from the public at the 2 scoping sessions will be limited to that, but I expect that sometimes they go far afield. We've had that happen before. I can send the board members between now and the next meeting. Sarah referred to the seeker handbook, which does have a even more detailed explanation of the scoping process in case you want to get into the weeds of that. I will send it to the board members. So if you want to read that prior to the commencement of the process, that's fine. I think the only thing that we need to do is, are there any questions from the board members, first of all, for Sarah or myself? Okay.
And just to follow up on what Warren just said, I think we will also try to send to you, probably by the end of next week, the month is going quickly, the EAF parts 2 and 3, which will be the basis for the POS deck. And I think, Warren, you would also be drafting a resolution.
Yeah, I'll be working with Sarah and the applicant's attorney to prepare the POS deck for the next meeting. You should have it prior to the meeting to review. The only housekeeping measure that we need to do tonight is that there has to be a resolution of the board at the instigation of the chairman to conduct a special meeting on June 23rd, 2021 to deal with the scoping and other matters regarding the Durst project. And we anticipate we may have some other matters on the agenda for that night.
Okay.
Michael, yeah.
So, yeah, sorry. I was writing notes, so anyway. All right, so can I have a motion to hold a special meeting of the planning board on June 23rd, 2021 at 7:30 virtually on Zoom, please?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, there you go. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Let it be shown that the motion carried unanimously, and we will have a special meeting on June 23rd at 7:30.
And Tricia, we need to send, we don't, you're going to publish there's nothing to publish in terms of the meeting, but you will have to notify the official newspaper in writing that we're having the special meeting on that date. That's just required because you're setting the public hearing more than 7 days in advance. So
Okay.
if you have any questions about that, let me know.
Yeah, and we'll also put a notice up on the town website and our Facebook page also.
Okay.
And okay, now I think we touched on everything. Is there anything else, Warren, that has to be done, or Sarah? So I guess we're done with the Durst part of the meeting.
I think so.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone from Durst, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have
very
a good night.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night.
I'll see you, Sarah.
Bye.
Good night.
All right, next up on the agenda is public hearing for the KTB application for a restaurant. If I guess Tricia, could you read, do you have the public hearing notice, please? Could you read it?
Yep, 1 second. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town of Pine Plains Planning Board on the 9th day of June 2021 at 7:30 PM for the purpose of hearing all persons for or against the site plan for a restaurant submitted by KTP Properties LLC for a property located at 2938 Church Street, Town of Pine Plains, Dutchess County, State of New York, tax map number 6872-18-363194. Do I need to read all the Zoom information?
Oh, no, like the URLs, not, Warren, does she have to actually read that into the record?
Pardon?
She
I'm
doesn't have to
sorry.
read the Zoom information, correct?
Read the public hearing notice in?
I think we're good. She doesn't have to read the Zoom link information, like the meeting number and all that stuff.
No, that's not. I'm sorry. I gotta talk louder. It's hard for me.
Okay.
Okay.
And now, do we have to vote to enter the public hearing, or can we just enter the public hearing?
No, you can just, you should make a motion to open the public hearing, Michael.
Okay. All right, so can I have a motion to open the public hearing, please?
Also move.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, yeah, only the members, please. All opposed? All right, let it be shown, we are in a public hearing now for this application. Tricia, do you have a count for me? How many people are looking to speak on this application?
I don't have an official count, but no, I guess, does anyone, should we just
All right,
ask
yeah.
who wishes to speak?
okay, I thought we were, all right, no problem. It's kind of hard to I'm just gonna scan over. So I'm gonna set a time limit at 3 minutes for each person that wants to speak. I want to remind everyone that the board is going to listen, but may not necessarily respond to, and we will not get in a dialogue with you, and will not necessarily respond to your specific comments, but we will listen to everything you have to say. Let me just set up my timer. Should I have that set? I apologize. Okay. Oh, actually, before we have the public speak, perhaps we should have a presentation by the applicant to give us familiarize ourselves with the project and what's going on. If I don't know who's here from the applicant, I see Jack. Jack, do you want to speak, or are you having somebody speak for you? And
No, I'm happy to speak, but Alan Rapelier is also representing me. I have a quick question, Michael, not in terms of who's speaking, but does Tricia have, do we know how many people responded through email to this announcement of the public hearing, both in favor and opposed?
Yeah, the number was north of 70 people have replied. Tricia, do you have the special the site plan plat that we could pull up?
Sure.
So we
Yep.
see it
Give
while
me 1 second.
Jack speaks. Excellent. That's perfect. Okay, Jack, why don't you take it away and describe the project?
Basically, what we're asking of the planning board is authorization to continue what, excuse me, what is a use for this property since roughly 1994 as a restaurant. We purchased the property assuming that that's what it was, and naturally that we would be allowed to do it. We've had there was a little confusion at the first board meeting, which was a month ago when we first applied, and we asked for some sort of extended use of a non-conforming use. That was at the suggestion of Drew, who apologizes for it because it turned out that there was some determination that this was not a continuation of non-conforming use because the property had, the restaurant that had been there previously had not been operating for over a year. That was largely due to COVID, of course. The landlord had continued to try to rent it throughout that period, had one person respond and was ready to open. And then with the COVID, he said, I just can't do this. And hence it wound up being vacant for that period of time. But it was not abandoned in any way. The attempt was to continue to have someone take it over as a restaurant. But in any case, we bought it and we submitted that first application, and we were told to submit a site plan, which we did 2 weeks later, which was 2 weeks ago. The board reviewed it. It seemed to be acceptable in terms of site plan and the environmental impact study, and all the elements were fine. And then there was a determination that because there was an objection from a neighboring property owner, that we should postpone a full public hearing until today. What we're assuming we would do was that we've been with the health department and they've approved us for 23 seats. We're still trying to get 28, which is what it used to be. But be that as it may, our septic has been inspected by the health department and it's got a clean bill of health. We've done some minor alterations. We moved our septic tanks out of sight. I mean, not septic tanks, our propane tanks out of sight from the main road because they were kind of ugly where they were. We painted the building. We did some interior work. We put a few electrical outlets in, got some new kitchen equipment because the old equipment was pretty shabby, what was left of it. And then we would assume that we would be opening a restaurant to include, largely because of COVID, but even in spite of COVID, some outdoor seating area in the back, as every restaurant on Pine Plains does. Everybody uses every square inch of property they've got to try to get more tables out so they can keep operating over this last year. And that's where we stand. This is we thought a relatively straightforward and simple process, but it's just turned out to be a little more complicated than we had anticipated. And we hope for a reasonable resolution, I would hope tonight. Is there anything else you need from me, Michael? Is there anything that I've left?
No, thank you. That's very good. If that's all you got to say, let's take that off. Well, do we want to leave that up? Yeah, but I can't see who's here. Problematic. All right. Well, Tricia, take it down for now, but if they ask for it to be put up, just be ready, please. Sorry. All right. So now we'll have the members of the public that have come to talk regarding this application. I see. We'll start off with the next door neighbor. I take it you guys are looking to speak. Or are you having somebody speak for you? I see Mr. and Mrs. Hollick. You are muted at the moment.
Okay,
Is that better?
Yes, we hear you now. Thank you.
thank you.
We are going to have our attorney speak for us.
Oh, okay. And he is here. I hope.
Thompson. Mhm.
Yes.
What is his name?
Wayne Thompson.
Wayne Thompson. Mr. Thompson, can you speak up so I can see your,
I am here. Can you hear me?
I hear you. I'm just trying to find you. All right. Okay, go ahead. I will start the timer.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very kindly, sir. I've submitted 2 letters in opposition to the project on behalf of my clients. This is a non-conforming use. It has expired. Contrary and with all due respect to the applicant, I submitted a Facebook page today from the prior owner that the restaurant was shut down in January of 2019. So therefore, this needs to be considered as a new application. With the passage of time that's gone, January 2019 really had nothing to do with COVID. In fact, what the prior owner stated is they couldn't make enough money to keep the restaurant open. So therefore, under the town zoning code, as I've laid out in the 2 prior submissions, this needs to comply with all current zoning. This is much like a junkyard that were zoned out under non-conforming uses, in that you want to reevaluate property lot size, property locations, property uses, and all the various impacts to the neighbors and the neighborhood before a special use permit is granted. This is not an as-of-right application. This is a special use permit. On the site plan, I didn't see any setbacks listed. I didn't see any landscape screening listed. I didn't see any sound screening listed. I didn't see any light screening listed. All of these things directly impact the neighbors. I think that the application is far from complete. Also, with the letter I submitted today were pictures of work being done without permits by the applicant's own admission. They've done electrical, gas lines have been moved. Heaven forbid if a resident went out and tried to put an above ground swimming pool in and plug in a pump, that I'm sure that there would be a problem with not having an electrical permit. I don't know why work has continued unabated, despite my clients calling that work was continuing without the proper permits. This requires a site plan. All the alterations, all the structures that are built, moved, or newly constructed need to be in accordance with the site plan. And this needs zoning board of appeals approvals because the lot is far from adequate. It's lot size, 20,000 square foot required, 5,500 square foot. Lot width, 50 feet. We got 22 feet. Side yard, 5 feet. We have 2 feet, and that's only a guess because I couldn't scale the drawing, and the side yard isn't indicated on the site plan. So I don't know how we can make decisions when the ZBA needs to look at and do the 5-part balancing test on the appeals, the area bulk requirements that don't meet, and all the impacts to the neighbors and directly to the neighbors in the neighborhood have not been put on a site plan or addressed in the narrative. I know we're on a limit. I know there's a lot of people that want to speak. I welcome anyone who would love to give me a call on this and discuss this further, but my submissions stand. Thank you very kindly for your time.
Thank you. Let's, everyone who, by the way, is not speaking, please mute your mics when you're done. And the next person from the public I see on here is Mr. Lowe. I see you, you're next just on my screen here. So I take it you're here to speak on this application?
Well, I did send in a letter to the planning board, which I think represents most of what I have to say about it. But I'd first like to express my empathy to Mr. and Mrs. Hollick. I understand why you're perhaps grieving against this matter. But I'd also like to point out that this was a restaurant location in 1994, and you purchased your property in 1999. And according to the records, it was 1999. And I also understand from Ms. Wheeler, who owned the restaurant at that time, that you had rented the property. So you knew what you were getting into before you purchased that property because you even lived there. The thing I really object to is that there are people in our town who need work. COVID has been extraordinarily difficult for a lot of us, and especially people who work in the restaurant business, which I thankfully do not myself, but there are a lot of people in the restaurant business and other businesses who need jobs. They're out of work. And your objection to this is holding up the work for these people's livelihoods. They're probably, I don't know the number because I haven't seen financials or anything, but I'm going to guess 5, 6, 7 people who are out of work right now, who'd like to be working. And you're holding up this application for something you've been living with forever because you willfully bought your house. Excuse me, I'm speaking.
Wait.
You may not
right.
talk. You may not rebut.
Hold on, Mr. Lowe, 1 second. Like, again, everyone, no one's getting in any dialogues, including the board members, and certainly not between the public and each other. So, you guys had your say. Your representative had his say. So let him speak. Mr. Lowe, if we just maybe just talk more, just don't try not to accuse them of anything. Just talk about what is happening.
Okay.
As opposed
I was trying to express my empathy.
That would help. I understand.
Obviously, it didn't work very well. I want to say that the gens who are proposing to run this restaurant have been very important pillars in our community. They have done fundraising events for people who are in great need. They have really given a lot of themselves for free to help people out. When people's barns burnt down, when people's had other issues in life. And so they really have done a great deal for our community. And I think we should give back to them and allow them to go back to work. And anyway, I just appreciate the work of the planning board. And I hope that you all grant the application because after all, it's been a restaurant since 1994, 4 different restaurants in that location. So thank you very much, Mr. Stabile, and thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. I just want to make a point that this application has not been held up. This is going through the process that this application requires, and that there has been no holdup, and this is just part of that process. But yes, thank you very much for your comments. Now, next up here on my board, I see someone named Richard in a red shirt. Are you looking to speak on this application? You're muted. So if you shake your head, yes or no. So I know. No. Okay. So you're not on this one. All right. So let me go. I have Ms. Zimmerman. Are you here for this application? So please shake your head, yes or no. Yes. Okay. So if you can unmute and please.
I think I just unmuted.
You did. I hear you fine.
Okay, so I'm a homeowner in Pine Plains. I own that beautiful pink house on Pine Street. It's just a wonderful community. I've dined at Stissing House many, many times and have loved it. And it's several actually different ownerships. And I just wanted to say that I really believe that as a community, Pine Plains deserve to have a really fine dining establishment, which I believe is what Stissing House was, and this new restaurant, Champetre, would be. And that's kind of all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the next person I have on here, I see someone on an iPad named Patricia. Are you here to speak? If you can unmute, I don't have a visual on you, so if you can unmute and say if you're going to speak.
No, I'm just here supporting myself. It's,
Okay.
oh, sorry, you don't have a visual on me, sorry.
All right, so you're
yeah.
not looking to speak. Okay.
I'm not looking to speak right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and then that scrambled me. Next, I have someone named Alan. Are you here for this application?
Yes, but I represent the Bannings, but if I would prefer to.
Oh, I'm
maybe be
sorry.
clear-
Yep.
That's okay. I would rather just, if I need to speak at all, wait till the end.
Yes,
Is that okay?
It would be at the end. I have 3 screens of people here. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll mute myself.
Okay, so I have someone. Oh, I have Mr. Zayas. Are you looking to speak on this application? Okay, unmute yourself and I'll reset the timer.
Hello. Yeah, so this is Nelson and Lisa Zayas, and we're here in support of the application for the restaurant to be allowed. I've watched the videos with this application, the last couple that were posted, and I see the applicants continuing to ask what is needed for their application to be approved. They're given some information, and then I see the town lawyer and the planning board president move the goalposts, and I can feel, I feel for them because having gone through a similar experience earlier this year. Mr. Lowe, he said a lot of things that I would have said in terms of the application, in terms of what they've done for the community, including supporting us and our annual meal to the community at Christmas time for the last 2 years. And so both the support that we've received from the Bannings and from Michelle and Patricia. If I were to have a restaurant next to me where I live, I can think of no better people to run that restaurant than Michelle and Patricia and the clientele that they have had at the Stissing House, in the past. So, I wish they would just get a clear answer on what they have to do one time so they can do it and get this application approved instead of continuing month after month. All right, I guess that's.
Yep, we support you.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, so next up, I have is Helen. I'm sorry, is it Fuz or Fuzz? I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Are you here to speak on this application? I don't have a visual on you. So, all right, I'll move on to the next person. Oh, wait, hello?
No, I'm not. Oops, sorry, no. I wasn't here to speak. I am just here as a past employee and certainly wish this would be approved.
Thank you very much.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
if you could remute your, great, thank you. Ms. Redmond, are you here to speak on this application? If you can unmute, and we do not have a camera on for you at the moment. There you go.
Okay, I'm not here to speak.
Oh, okay.
I'm watching.
I see. All right, thank you very much. Also, everyone realize, thank you very much. Remute your mic. You can watch the meetings on YouTube. You don't have to log into Zoom to watch the watch the meeting. So they are streamed live on YouTube, and they will also appear later for archived forever on our the Pine Plains Planning and Zoning Board YouTube channel. And as the kids say, just hit the subscribe button, and you'll see the things come up, a notification come up when we go live. All right, first, okay, I have Marie Stewart. Are you looking to speak on this application?
No, I am not. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thank you. On to screen 3. I have a Caitlin Lyle. Are you looking to speak on this application?
No, I'm here to listen.
Okay, thank you. I have a Carol Paccio. I'm sorry, I'm saying your name incorrectly. Are you here to speak? Carol Paccio? No. You're muted. We don't hear you, so FYI. Or see you, for that matter.
Carol's with David Burke Associates for the capital.
All right, thank you. Tracy Herman. Oh, wait. Well, I don't know. Are you here to speak, or is this?
I didn't come prepared to speak, but
Okay.
I would like to make a small statement after listening for a little while.
Sure.
Little emotionally invested in this. I am Patricia and Michelle Jean's bartender and assistant manager for the last 6 years. I have formed a lot of strong relationships with our guests over the years, have been a lifetime member of the community of Pine Plains, growing up in Stanfordville and now owning a house in Gallatin. I have been touched and humbled by the support that we have had, and humbled to find out actually how many other restaurants have approached me since this. And so I could be at work somewhere else if I wanted to be, but I am very grateful and loyal to the Jeans for the environment that they have created for me to work in comfortably, and my relationships with my coworkers. And I just really would like to get back to work with the people that I like to work with.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is that, if that's all, okay, she muted. All right. I have somebody who's on the phone, ending 845 number ending in 1055. Are you looking to speak? If so, please unmute. All right. So 845 ending in 1055. You're not, I take it you're passing. Let me see. Is there anyone else besides Dara? I do have Dara on. Dara, I think you're up.
All right. I'm speaking here tonight as the sole owner of the property at 2943-47 Church Street, which is also a restaurant with 2 bars. And directly across the street from the property we're talking about tonight. I'm also the person who revitalized the Pine Plains Business Association after it lapsed in the mid-2000s. In my capacity as the organizer of the PPBA, I learned a significant amount about growing business in a small town. One of the principal tenets of growth is this: every new business that opens helps every other business stay open. I fully support the opening of Champetre for this reason. It's important to the well-being of the town as a whole and its future. When my children were growing up, we spent every Sunday by the wood stove at Crumpets for breakfast dating back to 1997. And I see no reason for any questions as to the validity of a restaurant business at this location. I welcome it. And I have full faith in the process and legality of what our building inspector and planning board and our town attorney are doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Tara. All right, so now if there's no more members of the public here, as far as I can tell, anyone speak up now or hold your peace? We're going to have, oh, wait, Richard? Oh, no.
Hi, I was muted earlier, and all I choose to say would be that I'm also in support of the application, and I think it would be coloring our community in the wrong way and a backward step if this application were not approved. Thank you.
Yeah. And your name was Richard? What's your last name?
I'm sorry, Richard Schwartz. I'm an owner in the area for since 1986.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, if the applicant's representative attorney, if he can would like to address any of the comments or the things about the application that you would like to discuss.
Yes, thank you. I don't want to say too much. Look, all of the issues raised by Mr. and Mrs. Hollick's counsel are really not properly before this board. This is site plan review. The contentions that he's made are not planning board issues. Aside from being incorrect, they're not planning board issues. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. So yeah. Board members can. Okay, so I want to. There was many correspondence beyond several regarding this application. There are several from the Hollicks and their representatives, and over 70 letters. All supporting the application. I want to have those entered into the public record. They have been added to our Dropbox, and anyone can read them in our public records area of our Dropbox account. Anyone has trouble finding it or needs the link to it, it's on our Facebook page, but you can also reach out to Tricia at Planning Board at Pine Plains .ny.gov, and she can help you see those letters. They were and just I did want to note that they did hit on several themes over and over again, as far as the restaurant being there since 1994, outdoor being important because of COVID and the lingering worries that some people have because of COVID. And generally saying that the restaurant would be a benefit to the town, and also mentioning that it being closed likely due to COVID. So that was their opinions. Next, I would invite the members of the board. Do we want to ask any questions from or speak on the issues at hand, or ask any questions of the applicant? Nope. Got a timer on myself.
I guess we could bring the site plan back up and talk about the site plan and the lighting and the things that were brought up at the beginning of the discussion.
Trish, could you bring, okay, good. Thank you.
All right. You had a question, Kate, or you were just asking for that?
I mean, I was just suggesting that we discuss the concerns that might not be on the site plan. I can't see it, I have to zoom in, but the lighting.
Yeah, also a
Screening,
landscape barrier.
Dick, where are you thinking about a landscape barrier or just in general?
Well, I don't know whether a fence or something that, one of the, despite what Mr. Rapley said, I do think that we have an obligation to deal with any exterior lighting. So I would want to, see that a little more specifically laid out. And in terms of blocking visuals, whether it's a fence or plantings on the property line, so that, there can be some buffer between the Holics and this property.
I'll speak to that for just a second, if I may, Dick and Michael. If you look at the narrative that we submitted along with the site plan originally a few weeks ago, we go into that. The lighting consists, there's no change in the lighting in the front. We're using the existing signpost, which is out there with just a normal light on it as it was before. There's no other exterior lighting other than for the backyard. What we're proposing to do is use the lights that they used to use at Stissing House, which I think most of the folks are familiar with. They're little 7-watt bulbs strung like, they're sort of a Christmas tree light string. I have it here, I can show it, but it's not plugged in at the moment. But they're strings of 24 lights, so an entire string is the equivalent of a 100-watt bulb. So there's no significant lighting that we're proposing at all. It's just to make it a soft light in the backyard. As to a barrier, the Holics constructed some time ago an 8-foot sort of stockade type fence with the finished side facing them, which somebody told me is against the code, but I don't know the first thing about that code. And we have discussed and mentioned also in last time we met that we would like to put a hedge in the back, just closing off the back, which faces to the parking area of the Stissing Center and the Catholic Church property. They would be small trees or a hedge. Or if someone preferred, we'd be happy to do a fence. It just doesn't seem quite appropriate to put another big fence there. Those were, I think, answered in the narrative that we submitted. It's pretty de minimis. There's no significant lighting.
What about it in the front? There's existing lighting there already?
There's a light over the door, and there's a signpost where the restaurant name would be, or any business name if it were a business, which would have the normal, down light on it that you have on an exterior sign, like a farm sign or whatever it may be. But there's no change. There's no new bulbs going anywhere. There's nothing up facing. There's no additional lumens from. Yes, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
And there's a light also on the side of the building. There's a path or something, or just gravel from.
There's a gravel path we put. It's very nice gravel. We got the kind of fancy gravel to put all the way down that path. As we did in the backyard. By the way, the backyard is gravel as well. So when we do seating, obviously there's no impervious surface of any kind. That wouldn't make any sense. There's I believe, yes, there's a small light over, there's a side door that has a small light over it, which lights the path.
Okay, I'm just going to jump in here. There's a light over the front door. There are also 2 lights on the side, on the corner. So I'm not sure about down in the back of the building, where the tanks used to be. There's just the 2 lights on the corner and the 1 in the front, which are going to need shades on them.
Yes.
Right now, there's no shades. They will need shades on them because they're extremely bright.
And if they're too bright, we just take them down and put up a slightly different down facing.
Put shades on them.
Yeah.
Coverings, and it would be fine.
No problem. Thank you, Vicki.
Where is the garbage, and what type of garbage
Again, Michael, that's in the narrative which we submitted. We have had conversations with Welsh, and they've agreed to do multiple pickups during the week so that we never wind up with a whole bunch of garbage cans out front. It would be the same as all along Church Street where people put their garbage out, most of it weekly, but we've arranged them to do twice weekly. They will do 3 times weekly if it's necessary, but they don't think it will be. There would be normal recyclable bins and the regular garbage bins. They look just like everybody else along Church Street.
Yeah, so those rolling.
Yeah,
covered-
yeah, and they've agreed to come by. We've initially set it at twice a week instead of once a week because we assume we're doing a little more garbage than we do at the inn, for example. But it would be like that as it is on the, all along Church Street, wherever the businesses are. On Wednesdays it's out there, and they would do Wednesday and Friday or whatever 2 days we chose.
And where will they reside? Between garbage?
Down that side path on the east side of the building, where the propane tanks used to be. We moved the propane tanks around to the back to hide them a little bit, and that gives us a spot to put the garbage cans when they're pretty much out of sight. You might be able to see them a little bit, but again, it's what was there previously and what fits within this within what we've got.
And what's down this side is there a fence between that side?
And how do you get the sound on this?
I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
Who is this?
Sorry.
I'm asking, is there on the east side?
Yeah.
Against that neighbor, there's a fence there?
No, there's not. There never has been. We would put one up if the neighbor wanted it for whatever reason. Unfortunately, that neighbor is not reachable. We have tried several times because that neighbor has a shed that overhangs onto over our property line, and we've offered to take it down for him before it completely falls because it's sort of teetering. But we've been unable to reach him. Apparently, it was belonged to his cousin or something, and who passed away, and he's in Hyde Park, and we've been unable to find any way to reach him, including we've asked the assessors, we've asked everybody we can think of for numbers, and we've had a few phone numbers, but they're all disconnected, and I've sent him 2 letters, but I've never heard back. But we would be happy to put up a fence there, but to what end, I don't know, because it's essentially, it's not abandoned, but it hasn't been used for, let's put it this way, it hasn't been used for over a year, and it's less than 200,000 square feet. So if someone wanted to use it again, they might run into the same problem we're running into.
And there's very little room there. So what is this line I wish I had a pointer here. So if we look at the path that comes from the street to the front door.
Yes, sir.
And then it makes a turn to the east. And then takes a turn to the south. At that corner, there's a line, and it might say it on the map. I just can't read it at this because it's of the size. So there's a line right there that goes almost, it looks like it's going through their chimney or whatever that square is. Do you know what that line is? Is that just the path edge? Is that what that is?
Yes, I believe that would be correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There's I'm not absolutely certain, to be perfectly candid, whether a portion of their, whatever that is onto our land or their land. I know the survey shows what the survey shows, which makes it look as if it's all perfectly legit. So I assume it is. But yes, that's what that is. That's the pathway.
And now along the fence, the Hollick's fence on the west side, are there any plantings, any existing plantings along that area?
No, they put that fence up. I don't know how long ago, but some time ago, and it's 8 feet high. What they have planted on their side, I don't know. It essentially goes so close to the building, there would be no way to put a planting in there. It just abuts right up to the property line. And then they added an additional fence going all the way down the backyard and out another 10 feet into the into the Catholic Church property, but doesn't concern us.
So there's no plantings along the fence?
No. There's no room for them alongside the building. What we're proposing to do in the back is turn it into an attractive garden, for lack of a better word. And put some trees or shrubs, whatever is appropriate, along that back line where it abuts the Catholic Church property.
Can you or your representative address the parking? Like, obviously, I mean, there's no space for parking, so what?
Well, again, Michael, that's in the narrative, and I went over it with Drew. There's no requirement for on-site parking. It's on-site parking is required for any new subdivision or something like that, if someone were building something. But we're allowed to count the parking spaces on Route 199 and the municipal lot, as long as it's within 500 feet and it's within 350 feet. So it's more than adequate parking. We're only required to we're required to put have one parking space for, I think it's every occupant, which comes to 12 spaces. And there are more than 12 spaces on Church Street and in that in the municipal lot, which is within what the zoning requires. And you can ask Drew if you perhaps to explain that a little better, but that's the way we worked it out.
Lighting. So let me just. Anyone else have any questions while I just check my notes?
How many seats do you want out? I know you said this at a previous meeting. How many seats do you want in the back?
Well, we're talking about maybe 4 tables, something like that. That would be, the use of them is obviously subject to our total seating as we're allowed for septic reasons, which has nothing to do with this board. That's the county. But it would probably be 4 tables.
And I know previously they had tables out front. You're not asking for any tables out front?
No, I didn't know we had to ask, but again, with just about every restaurant is using every square foot they've got for outside tables these days. So I don't think we were planning specifically to use the outdoors. We'd probably put some cafe tables out there just because they look nice, but whether no one would be dining out there. I mean, it's entirely possible that someone might want to sit out there in late afternoon and have a glass of beer or whatever, but we're not expecting to use that as part of a dining facility in any real sense.
And so does the seating number, which you're saying is held at 23 at the moment, you're hoping for 28.
Yeah.
So that includes the outdoor dining?
My understanding is it includes what they specify is for the interior space, but I know from past experience that if we were using the outdoor, if we were having 16 outdoors, we'd be limited to 7 indoors on that occasion. Yes.
And when you said 4 tables, you're talking 4 tops? Is that
yes, that's the assumption. I mean, you might have an occasional party with 1-6. I mean, I don't know, but the point is it's not dense by any stretch of the imagination. It's a small portion of that backyard, which we hope to make very attractive with some plantings and those sort of Christmas lights, for lack of a better term, that they used at Stissing House for so many years.
Any music out back?
No. And no smoking out back.
The exhaust from the kitchen, where is that located on the building?
It's on the east side, facing the other property, past where the house structure is. It's not on the Hollick side.
And I think you addressed it possibly at the last meeting, but oh wow, one right out of my head. What was it? Give me a minute. Anyone have?
Welcome to the club, Michael.
Yes, smoking. I had asked about like, would there be any smoking on the in the back area?
No, I may have muted myself inadvertently, but I just said that.
Yeah, I missed it. All right. Does anyone else on the board have any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm gonna look to move to close the public hearing unless somebody else has anything to add.
No, he's answered my questions.
Thank you, Ken.
I move that the public hearing be closed.
Can I have a second?
We would like.
Patty and Bill asked if they could speak again.
Who's that?
Patty and Bill just asked if they could speak again. They texted it or messaged or
Yeah,
chatted.
I saw that also.
What, Warren, is that fine or? Warren?
Yeah, that's fine. I saw that note too. There's no reason why the neighbors can't speak again.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Hi, so back in February, when I saw that Michelle was there, I had congratulated him. I asked him, "Were you opening up a restaurant here?" He said yes. The difference between this restaurant and anything else that was opened throughout time, especially the first one, when we first bought the house, is that they have accessed and excavated the little piece of land that is next to our backyard, and it's very close. It is so close that today, when I was on the deck of my pool and Michelle pulled his car in from the adjacent property on the west side, there is now a driveway there that he uses.
Through somebody else's property.
And he pulled in to the back, at the back of the property. He could see me in clear day and I could see him in plain day. We are so close to this backyard. If we speak, people will hear us. The compressor that was put on the west door is so close to us that when it goes on and off, we hear it. We can hear it from our backyard. We can hear it from our back deck.
And it goes off and on every 10 minutes.
It's going
It's not
off
like
and
a
on,
little thing.
off and on, off and on. The gravel, when the car drives in,
When they walk on it, you could hear it.
I mean, it's like we are living in their backyard, basically. We do not have anything personal against the Johns at all. Believe me, we don't. And we know that they've done good things for the town, and we've been good community members to this town too. But this is something that has never been in all of the years of us owning this property. We're not going to have privacy in our yard. We're not going to be able to talk. We're not going to be able to relax on our deck. We have cars driving back there now. We have people. The public is going to be sitting back there now.
And what about the
Before-
zoning laws? I mean, are we going to follow the zoning laws on this? Why don't we start with the basics? The zoning laws are not being followed. It's a non-conforming lot, non-conforming use. That's it, done. We should be reimbursed for our legal fees because you are not following the zoning laws.
We tried to read the zoning laws on our own when we felt that this can't be. I mean, and believe me, restaurants have come and go here, okay?
Because it's not a good place to have one.
Basically, we haven't opposed them, okay? They use the front, they use the building, they didn't drive through the backyard, okay? They didn't put, the backyard was a little lot of woods. That was it. They didn't come driving through
or plow down
They
our
plowed-
mound that kept us private.
Yes, there was a mound.
That wasn't even
taken
on their
that-
property.
That, yes, I mean, people are just coming in and just doing what they want on property that is not theirs, that is really affecting us. It's really affecting us. And we wouldn't be going to the lengths of trying to find out the law if it wasn't. I mean, all these years, yes, we rented the house. We rented this house with the option to buy because Crumpets had just opened and we had young kids and we thought being in the village, and we love the beach, being in the village, walkable, we love the village, let's try it out. We tried it out. We put up the first fence we did for the Hearts because the Hearts wanted this house that we bought to be rentable with the cafe there. It was a cafe, and I know people have grand memories, and that's fine. I mean,
It wasn't an outdoor bar
it
in our
wasn't
backyard.
a bar in our backyard. It was a daytime cafe where people came and had coffee. And then as time progressed, it was closed for a long time.
It's been closed half of the time.
Half of the time this place has been closed. And then, you know, other businesses opened. It wasn't a mini Stissing House operation coming to our backyard.
And the Stissing House is opening in the fall as a restaurant.
So this is totally different. And this is why we seek counsel. We got our lawyer. We were looking for someone to help us because we are basically desperate. We don't own a large piece of land here. We have been here 25 years. We love our backyard. We love using our backyard. We are in it. We worked today. We went in our pool. I mean, this is what we do. And
I
this
have,
is going
I
to
have, I have
totally,
two questions.
totally,
Excuse me.
certainly.
What is this? The compressor you speak of, is this a piece of construction equipment or is this
It
something?
was a new
For a
compressor
walk-in cooler
installed.
that
and
they
I asked
installed
the man-
illegally.
I asked the man, according to our lawyer, that's what he told us. That's why we kept calling Drew and saying, are there permits? Are there permits being issued? There was so much work being done. So
No
this
permit.
compressor-
Hold on, let me just answer. So there was a walk-in cooler and this is
I don't
out-
know.
I don't think so.
I don't know. We don't know what was inside there. I know that when the man was installing it, I spoke to him from my deck on my second level. And I asked him what he was installing. And he said that it was a compressor for a walk-in cooler. And I said, so will that be going on and off? You know, are we going to hear that? And he said, yeah, you probably are. And I was like, oh, you know, great. And, you know, we didn't say anything about that until Brad Hay came through the back of the
All right,
church.
all right, well, all right, we don't, let's, we have,
Okay,
I just don't want, I get the picture there with that. The other question I had is the mound, where was exactly was this mound that was,
Okay,
is that where
so-
your fence is now?
No, we put our fence further back. So we had spoken to Jack about this when we spoke to him, when they were coming through the church property in March.
So the mound,
They moved the mound from the west side to the south side for some reason. I have no idea why. So that water would run off into the church field
And our yard.
and our yard.
That was the,
Pretty much.
okay, just hold on. So
Okay.
the mound was on the west side of their property.
not this
between-
property.
No, it was on the corner of their property and ran
Let me talk.
southward, not on their property.
It was the
And they just
Stissing-
took it down anyway.
It was the Stissing Center parking lot was being extended. Okay.
Oh,
It
the
is?
Stissing Center,
Yes,
yes,
it
yes, it
is.
is. I'm sorry.
And so this was prior to this, to Jack Banning buying this. But we spoke to him about this. The Stissing Center went off of their property and there used to be a nice mound that blocked the parking
Headlights and,
lots,
yeah.
headlights and everything from where we barbecue and eat in our little yard in the back. That was taken down. The Stissing Center promised us that they were going to put up trees to block the lighting,
It
to
never
give us
happened.
more privacy. It never happened.
Then they said it wasn't in the budget.
And then, okay, in March, bulldozer was coming through the Stissing Center parking lot
All right.
and
All right, so I'm getting the picture with that. But this, technically, that's nothing really to do with this application.
Okay, then let's follow the zoning laws. Let's stick with that.
Okay, oh, okay, all right.
How about that? Why don't we
Any
start
other-
there?
Is there any other, we will have
Does
someone.
anybody
speak.
have questions?
Why are
for
we not
us?
following the zoning laws? Let's
Okay.
start with that.
Okay,
Can somebody answer that for me?
all right.
It's-
Is there any other issues that you want? to bring up?
That's my issue. Can
Well,
anybody
Jack's-
answer for me why we're not following the zoning law and you are the zoning board? Why is that not
No,
happening?
Planning board.
All right, thank you. If that's the only, all
I
right, so
do
thank you
have
for your
another
comment.
issue. We do smell smoke when we sit at our picnic table and in our yard.
Like cooking smoke?
We smoke over there
No,
continuously.
cigarettes. We hear all the sounds. We hear everything. I mean, it's
It's a
like.
bar. What do you
it's
think they're
like
gonna be
they're
doing there?
occupied.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I get the pictures.
And I don't remember lights in the front or a
All right.
light in the back.
Or sign lights.
And nobody, and yeah, as I
Or
said,
permits being
nobody
filed.
acts.
Or anything.
Okay, thank you. If you could please mute your mic. Thank you very much.
Yes, no
Follow
problem.
the law.
All right. If we can, actually, Jack, what?
Yes, sir.
Can you just tell me about the compressor, like with the walk-in?
There's a walk-in cooler that we put in and it does have an outdoor compressor. I was unaware that it was causing a noise problem. I'm certain it can be baffled. If not, we can move it back indoors, but it's in my estimation, it's not a big deal. If it's bothering the neighbors, we can certainly deal with that. But we did put there is a compressor there. Let me just speak for one quick second about, because the Stissing Center thing came up. The mound that's being referred to is part of the Catholic Church property. And when Stissing House was, when they were in the construction on the parking lot, it was an eyesore, and the Catholic Church had no problem with us just sort of moving it to make it and take all the junk out of it. We had no idea that the Hollocks had planted it and we were using it as compost. We just didn't know that because it was on Catholic Church property. And we do have, I also included a letter in our application indicating that we have permission from the Catholic Church to access our backyard over their property at this time. Not in perpetuity by any stretch of the imagination, but for the purposes of the.
Well, one second, Jack, 1 second.
Yes.
If everyone can mute who's not Jack, please. Thank you.
We needed access, obviously, for the health department to get in there so we could uncover the septic and all that sort of thing. And the Catholic Church said that was fine. We could use that property. And they acknowledged that what was there and had been moved was on their property, not on the Hollocks and not on ours. And some of it was moved initially by Stissing Center. And then when we were doing work in the backyard, we moved it a little more. The question of Stissing Center planting trees, I shouldn't say we, the Stissing Center has been talking to the Catholic Church about what they would like. Basically, that's a tree line to separate the Stissing Center parking lot from the Catholic Church property, not from the Hollocks property, because it doesn't extend over there. And the question of whether we're doing trees or a fence is something that we're still talking to the Catholic Church about. And it's not a question of not having the money for it. It's a question of where it works in the phasing of the Stissing House building.
And was that on the site plan for the Stissing? I know it's kind of off topic.
No, because it's not on our property at all. That's just a side issue that I was just responding to.
All right, yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with this. It has to do with the overall look of that whole back area and trying to make it more attractive.
But possibly if somehow that can be turned into a screening berm or something.
It could be anything that's acceptable between the Catholic Church and the Stissing Center. You know, that's
Okay. All right. We get back on germane issues here. All right. So now after hearing that, does any of the members have any further questions or comments that they want to make? And then, right, because we have to close the hearing
I have one question.
Okay.
The Hollick's made reference to that back area being used as a driveway. Is that just temporary? What is the,
I'm not sure exactly what they're referring to. Again, this has to do with that property on the other side. Where, again, we've been unable to reach the owners. They seem to be non-existent. We've tried desperately to reach them. We have used it for access in the same way that we've been using the rear from the over the church property just to get access to the backyard. I'm not sure that she's probably right that at this point there's some ruts that might look like a driveway, but it's a driveway from nowhere. It just goes from the Stissing House parking lot. It gives us a little bit of a shortcut that I guess Michelle has been using for parking, which I was unaware of, but that's all I know.
So that won't, sorry, go ahead, Dick.
there's no intention for that to be a parking area?
Oh, Lord, no.
Rather
No,
than-
no. It's the backyard of the other house, the house on the east side between our property and the old Shaw property. That's all that is.
And
And it-
where will your deliveries be going? I kind of just brought that.
In the front.
I'd like to just add something to this, if possible. People driving in the back, parking in the back. I know previous renters have used that. I don't think that that's the first. Michelle parking back there, I do not believe is the first person that used it. I know two owners that park back there and their help also park back there.
You're right. I see cars there.
I also would just like to add, since you have started cleaning up out back, if any of you walk in town, or if you knew what it looked like before and before the Stissing Center was there, the work that Jack has done around not only the building that they would like to put the restaurant in, but the abandoned building pretty much alongside of them. He's made some cleaned up around the things out back. I mean, it looks 100% better than it did. But as far as anyone driving back there, I mean, that's been going on for a long time. That's nothing new.
I lost connection for a second, but I'd asked where are deliveries going to be made? Like that
Out front, Michael.
out front. And what about staff smoking? Like
Not permitted.
not permitted. Okay.
No, sir.
And I have another question. How far is their pool from the fence?
I have no idea. I've never been on that property.
I could let you know.
Yes, go ahead.
It's about 10 feet.
10 feet. Is Drew here? I think
Yes,
the
Becky.
requirement is a requirement for a pool from the line from a,
That pool predates the zoning codes.
Right, it's an older pool, Vicky. It was before 2009.
all right.
Are we gonna follow the zoning laws here? That's what I want to know. How
All
come
right.
nobody can answer that?
Can-
This is a false application. It's
Hall-
not a restaurant reopening. It is
It's
not.
Mr.
that.
Hollick, Mr. Hollick, you're going to hear an explanation of that, the best we can provide for you. But this application is not a this application is for a restaurant, for a site plan for a restaurant.
It's
It said
for,
a
we'll take a
reopening.
look at the application again, because you're
In the business
doing it
district.
like it is.
In the business district, which is a permitted use in the business district, which requires only site plan approval. And that is what we're going through, the site plan approval process right now.
But the application is false.
I
Let's start with the basics. The application is not correct. It's a non-conforming use. It
Nope.
has been closed
Nope.
for a year.
Excuse me.
Over almost 2 years.
Excuse me. It is not a non-conforming use. It is a restaurant. A restaurant is a permitted as right with site plan approval in the business district and incidentally in the Hamlet Main Street district.
But
So in
doesn't,
either of those districts,
20,000
a
square
restaurant,
feet.
what's that?
It needs 20,000 square feet lot
Okay,
size.
That, all right. I answered your question. All right, so next, I
Oh,
think
you
at this,
answered my question. You're not going to follow the laws then.
we will have commentary on that. All right, enough. Please mute your mic. Anyone else from the board who wants to say anything?
I have one question for Jack. How much space is there between what I'm assuming that big square in the back with the X through it is what you propose as your patio seating area, correct?
I wouldn't call it a patio. It's just gravel, but
Your seating area.
The seating area, yes.
So approximately how much space is between the property line and what is drawn on the site plan on the west side?
That would be, gee, I don't know, maybe 4 feet, something like that. That particular block of space is kind of movable to the extent that this is where we think it makes sense to put it. It could be closer to the building and farther from the south lot line. It could be more of a rectangle and less of a square, if any of that is an issue. That's entirely, if for some reason that it doesn't fit appropriately, it can be jiggered, so long as we've got room for a few tables out there for use in the summertime and in the evening. That's it. In many ways, it's a very small deal that has become a much bigger deal because of the question of, are we going to be noisy and make a lot of smoke and have a lot of lights and bother the neighbors? The size of it is limited by the square footage. Well, actually, when we were talking about an extended use for a non-conforming use, it was limited to 400 feet because it could only be 25. 400 feet, I think it was, because it could only be 25% of the square foot area of the portion that was approved for non-conforming use. But now that it's not a non-conforming use, my guess is it's however we manage to use it in a reasonable fashion. Obviously, if the board thinks it's too close to the west, we can make it narrower, and we can make that fit. That's not cast in concrete, that square with the 2 strings of lights across from corner to corner.
Sure, I'm just trying to understand some of the.
Yeah.
I've never been back there. I was there when Penny owned it, and that was 20 years ago.
Well, it looks kind of nice now, actually.
I would just say, I would like to see in the site plan that something get planted along that fence, because I can only imagine that, yes, there may be noise. And that would help buffer it a little bit better, but not a fence on the other side, just purely for emergency access, because this is such a narrow lot and it always has been.
We can do any planting that anybody wants. I mean, we love plants, and Michelle and Patricia love plants. What I understand, the first conversation that Michelle and Mrs. Hollick had, he said she asked him what he was going to be doing out there, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to put a nice little garden and some patio seating." And she objected to the fact that it was a garden, thinking that we were, I don't know what she thought, but by garden, what all Michelle meant, I'm sure, was we want to make it as attractive as possible with some planting and make it look a little bit country and a little less of an abandoned lot. That's the whole point of doing the planting. It's aesthetic, and if it helps in the noise, that's a bonus. I don't think there's any noise to speak of, but that's just me.
Okay, so anyone else from the board have more questions?
Move that the public hearing be closed.
Thank you, Peter. Can I have a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Excuse me, I just have a couple of questions before you close. the
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to find out more about the compressor. Has a building permit been issued or required for the compressor? Drew, do you know?
Warren, it's something I wasn't aware of. I'll speak to Jack about that tomorrow. But yeah, if I want to look at it before I make that
Okay.
determination, but it is something I want to look at.
Okay, I think that we should examine that. And was it stated that the compressor could be moved indoors so it removes the noise? Is that a possibility?
It could be, I'm sure, one way or another. Walk-in coolers frequently have compressors on top of them or alongside them or somewhere inside. It's just a bit of a hassle to do it. You can also do a walk-in cooler with an air conditioning unit, but as soon as you put an air conditioning unit, that makes some outdoor noise also. But we'll do whatever's required, obviously. I had no idea that it required a permit, frankly. I thought we were just adding some more kitchen equipment, and didn't seem, that's my error. If it's an error, it's mine.
I don't know. That's up to Drew. That's not within my province.
Right.
All I want to know is concerning the noise aspect of the compressor. If the planning board was to require that the compressor be moved indoors, is that a viable possibility?
I think it's viable. I think it might be easier and more effective to baffle it. They do make compressors. They do make baffling equipment for compressors that pretty much nullify most, if not all, of the noise. I don't know how, but I know they exist.
Okay. The other question I had is about the Board of Health approval. Could you just go over that? Are you saying that you have approval for 23 seats, but you're
23 seats, 23
trying to
seats,
get
yeah.
28 seats?
We'd like to get 28 because that's what they used to have, but what the Board of Health has told us is if we keep accurate records of usage and numbers of covers, daily, weekly, and monthly, and then we see what the water usage was. Historically, the water usage has been below what's permitted, but they want to see that remains that way before they give us more seats. They're limiting us to 640 gallons a day, and we'll see. But we have approval for 23 seats based upon that formula.
Do we have something from the health department that indicates that?
The only thing I have is a letter or an email from the chief engineer to our engineer informing him of that. That's all I've got.
So if you got the 28 seats, let's say if you were limited to 23 seats, how many seats would you then be having on the patio?
Well, the point is we're only allowed to use 23 at any given time. So if my assumption is that if we were eating outdoors, we would then limit the indoors or close the indoors. We would make that work, and when we've discussed that, and it's doable within the operations of the restaurant.
And do you have any plans for the hours of operation? If you're going to utilize the patio, would there be a time that the patio would be shut down in the evening?
10 o'clock.
And you're not.
We also gave all the operating hours and the menu options to the Board of Health for them to help them determine how much they thought we were going to be doing on a given day.
And Drew, do we know what the setback are there any setback requirements for the outdoor seating area?
I don't think there's any way to determine that because it's the setbacks are to a structure.
So this wouldn't be considered a structure?
A gravel pad? No, I would not think so.
Okay. But Jack, you're amenable to changing the configuration of the outdoor?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
I just had a couple of, let me see if that's all I have.
I'll expand on that answer a little bit, Warren, if I may. we're amenable to doing whatever we can to get this open for Michelle and Patricia. That's the bottom line, okay? So,
Okay, those are the only questions I had.
I just have a few items. So is it possible to get a copy of that email transaction that
Oh,
took place between
course.
the Department of Health and the engineer?
absolutely.
Because the planning board should have that for its.
Yes, I asked my engineer, I said, do they send some formal notice? And he said, you've got it in this email. So I assume that's accurate. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what they normally expect. But yes, I can forward that.
Please, thank you. And then also regarding the seating in the back, would you consider providing a cap as far as the number of seating in the back area? Would you consider the planning board provided a cap on the number of?
We're assuming it's 4 tables. I would imagine there might be an occasion where a party of or a party of 20 people wanted to have a sit out there, and we might reconfigure, but it's not a large area, and it's not the principal reason for the restaurant, but it's important, singularly important during COVID, because there's so many people simply don't want to eat indoors, myself included, that it would get used probably a little more this summer than summers following. I don't know, but it's not designed to be principally an outdoor eating area. I mean, the Jeans do a wonderful job of providing charm indoors. This is just an added bonus for those people that would like to eat outside. I mean, you know, you look at Leah's or the Platter or across the street at Spud Shack. You know, some people just say, I want to eat outdoors, and they eat outdoors.
No, understood. I recognize the fact of eating outdoors. I was just wondering about whether you would consider a cap as far as the number of-
Sure, we'd consider a cap. What that number is, I don't know. I think given the restrictions that we have on our total seating, it's not going to get much bigger than what we're thinking of right now.
If I could pipe in, Jack, when do you anticipate you're going to get final planning board approval, health department approval? Do you know?
I think we have that. That's my understanding from the engineer. We have an email from their chief engineer to our engineer saying that they've inspected it all. We lifted up the septic. The septic, by the way, has been pumped. The grease trap has been pumped. We're doing a little work to bring a couple of manholes covers up to grade, but other than that, that's just for maintenance from our point of view. As far as I know, we have the approval, and my engineer says that's all we needed was this email. So I will forward it. If there's some other specific document that the Board of Health has to supply, I'm sure they're happy to do it, but so far nobody's told me what that is.
Well, once I see the email, then I can reach out to the health department and find out.
Where do you want me to send that? Just
send it to the planning board secretary.
Okay, fine.
Ray, so this site plan conforms to what we require from a site plan, with the added exception of possibly the lighting clarifications that the board members are looking for, as well as possible plantings that we may require.
Right, there were some items that had come up during the public hearing process. So there was a question of whether there might be seating out front, which is not shown on the site plan. So since it wasn't shown on the original site plan, there's a question of if there is going to be seating, that should probably be shown on this proposal.
It's not anticipated.
So there's no seating in the front.
Correct.
Okay. As far as the compressor, again, whether that's going to be the potentially being located back inside of the building to reduce noise, so that should be considered by the planning board. There was a discussion of proposed fence or hedge row that might be installed along what I believe, if I heard correctly, the southerly property line.
Yes, sir.
So if that is going to be done, I think the planning board should weigh into what it would like to see, whether a fence or landscaping or a combination of both. And if so, whatever that decision is, that should be shown on the site plan.
The garbage location, just have that located onto the site plan as far as where those units are going to be stored next to the building in that pathway that was described. Yeah, those were the items that were brought up during the public hearing that, again, have provided additional clarity as far as the site plan. And so they should be provided onto the site plan itself.
We can do that.
Prior to the board, signing off on the approval. They can also be provided as conditions as well, that those modifications be made to the site plan.
We can do that. It's a question of Wesley having time.
Sure. And again, planning board providing some direction on some of those items.
Exactly. And we're happy to take direction, believe me.
I have a question I just thought of. How will the patrons get to the backyard? Like,
Along that pathway?
Along the pathway outside. Okay.
Yes, sir. There's also a side door that leads to that pathway farther down, where some people might come in the front, and instead of going back out the front and around, they may decide to use that side door. But it's down that side of the building.
Okay.
They will not be entering over the Catholic Church property, I promise.
I'm sorry, my apologies. I left one item out that Vicky had brought up, was the lighting itself. If they are she had brought up the concern of the lighting in the front of the building, or the lights not having shades. You've indicated that you're willing to provide shades. So again, that should be identified.
Okay. On the site plan, or we'll wait until see what the conditions are, and then we'll do it all at once.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ray.
Sure.
Thank you, Ray. Warren, do you have any other comments or?
No. No.
Should we close the public hearing? I kind of wanted you to address just what we're looking at as far as, how this application, the process wise, I guess, with those questions that they had. Is there a way that you can just tell like what we're doing here, just so the public is aware? Or versus the non-conforming extension versus that this is a new site plan, and how that and the lot and everything. Is that something you can comment on or no? If not,
Yeah, I mean, the issue of the expansion of the non-conforming use is a non-issue as far as I'm concerned from a legal standpoint. That was the original application, but that's been withdrawn. So now it's simply a matter of a site plan approval for the restaurant. And I would like to see the site plan added to with the lighting and all the other issues that we discussed, so we would have it for the next meeting. But as far as the lot size is concerned, I mean, I view this as an existing lot of record with an existing building. And in my opinion, the lot size requirements that were referred to by the neighbors would not apply to this application. So the only issue for you would be to approve or disapprove the site plan. And if you want to close the public hearing tonight, or keep the public hearing open to the 23rd, June 23rd, until we get the revised site plan with the additions to the site plan and get some input from Drew on a couple of the other issues, that would be up to the board.
To keep it open, or should we just keep it open for correspondence? You'd rather have it open full? So we'd start the public hearing.
I think the board should decide whether they want to keep it open or if they've heard enough tonight to close the public hearing.
All right, board.
I have no problem with keeping it open, and dealing and having an opportunity for anybody who wants to speak. Hopefully not too many people. Not too many people showed up tonight, really, and considering how many letters we got. So I think in light that we're going to get a revised site plan, we should give people a chance to comment on it.
All right. Anyone else? So I guess I need a motion to keep
Withdraw
open.
the site plan. We withdraw the closing of the,
Well, we never did, we never voted on it, right? We never
Okay.
got there. If we could hold open the public hearing until the 23rd, when we will come up with, well, I guess now we'll discuss after this. So what do we, what's the proper language, Warren? It's escaping me at the moment. What am I doing right now? Adjourn, not adjourning, right?
We're going to keep the public hearing open till June 23rd. I would recommend that we commence the public hearing at 7:45 because we have something going on at 7:30 with regard to the Durst project.
I agree.
I think we should also wait and do the review of the part 2 of the environmental assessment form at that point and review the criteria for decision-making for site plans set forth in 275-63 of the zoning code. I can draft, if the board wants to discuss where they think they're going with this application, I'm happy to hear that tonight. If the planning board members feel that they are of a mind to approve the site plan with conditions, I can go ahead and draft a resolution for the board to consider with the resolutions that I think and Ray thinks should be included in any approval.
Yeah, I would like to have some input between the board members now, if that's possible. You know, I envision a resolution with being presented to the board with these stipulations that we were talking about, as far as conditions such as the lighting being clarified and having downlights, all the items that need to be added or noted on the site plan, the compressor, plantings along the west side, and planting. I think plantings would be, in my opinion, again, we can talk about it, plantings along the south border. I think a fence, I think Ethan had a good point that, you know, this lot is constricted enough. You know, you want to, if God forbid they need to get a fire truck in there, you know, and have to deal with running over a fence. So, did I freeze? Did anyone hear me?
yeah, I got a couple things. Jack mentioned, well, there might be 20 people out in the back. At 4 tables, that's pretty packed. But I'm concerned that even if you had 4 tables, 3 tables, 12 people, put the tables together, a party of 12, drinking and eating, it's not going to be a quiet situation. And that is one of the, I think, concerns we had, that it not be too loud back there, because it is a neighborhood next door. So,
no, I agree, but unfortunately, in this district is approved. I mean, the backyard garden has music across the street until 11 o'clock. This is going to be no music out back here, and it's going to be dining until 10. I mean, the band across the street is going to be louder
than this. Yeah,
they're electrified. I can hear it where we live.
Yeah, I know. I can hear where we live as well. I mean, so I understand their concerns, and I think Michael's idea of some kind of plantings or something to quiet the sound out there, and Mr. Banning had indicated there wasn't going to be music out back. So, you know, I don't know how you keep it quiet and permit dining out there. I think dining out back is a good idea because of COVID and just for the business itself.
On the issue of plantings on the west line, I guess I'm not an acoustical engineer, but given that there's already an 8-foot fence there, the plantings have to go on the restaurant side of the fence, obviously, because that's the only property they have. And I'm not sure I see what that is going to do for noise abatement. I mean, I don't know how much sound plants along a wall actually abate. The wall is going to reflect sound.
Ray, do you have any comment? Or
Sorry, my apologies, I was muted.
No.
So the fact that there's already a fence along that property line to the Holix, that fence in and of itself actually creates a bit of reverberation as far as that overall sound. Any landscaping potentially would assist. The fence itself doesn't do a lot of justice as far as trying to reduce the overall noise because it basically bounces off of the fence itself. Plantings would assist in reducing that. Or
Well, but does it bounce back to the restaurant side of the yard, or does it bounce into, does it go through the wall and bounce to the owners of the fence?
Because of the proximity of the building, of the restaurant and so forth, to the fence on that side of the building, which is the west side, it's going to bounce back and forth and then eventually start working its way upward. So again, the fence itself is problematic as far as noise, because it actually could result in what one would consider an increase in the noise.
Let me just chime in for 1 second. Ray, you were talking about alongside the building. There's no room to put a planting alongside the building.
No, I understand that. I wasn't.
We're talking about the planting in the backyard.
I was not promoting. I was not promoting the planting along the fence line. What I was referring to in my previous comments was based on the fact that you wanted to provide either a fence or landscaping along the southerly property line.
Southerly, right? Okay, yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, so what would help? Would anything help along the fence, Ray, is basically our question. Would anything help in the back where the seating area is outside with any sort of, what would help along that fence to help noise not transfer through it?
Let me ask a question. If we were to put some sort of acoustic tiling or something on our side of that fence, I don't know if we're allowed to touch that fence because I believe it's on the other property, but and we have the raw side facing us, not the finished side. We could find some way to baffle the sound that way if that would be useful, but I'm not sure exactly how, but I mean, it's doable.
I was going to indicate that is a possibility. That could have been a possibility provided the fence was on your side, but actually the fence unfortunately is located on the neighbor.
Right, so we can't really touch it.
Right. The only thing you could potentially do is to do some plantings, not between the fence and the building, but perhaps back by the
along. Yep, that's doable.
Isn't the number of people that the health department say are going to be there is going to really determine
exactly
the amount of noise. It isn't like the garden across the street. You know, I mean, that's much noisier. It's limited by the number of people you can have.
Yep, very much so. Believe me. That's a whole separate issue.
My idea in those plantings on that side would be if you follow the west side property line, it kind of comes to a little bit of an apex and starts to taper back down.
Yep.
And narrows. So from that apex to this is just me spitballing, maybe fellow gardener Vicky is somewhere out there and can comment. I would imagine planting some type of hedge of very tall and very narrow evergreens, like junipers or arborvitae or something that would grow 15 feet or so tall and not necessarily take up too much of your footprint in the back, would not only provide some benefit to that reverberation that Ray was talking about, but also add to the privacy as the fence only goes, so high. Those would go over that height.
I'm not sure how much space that would take up out of that backyard. We had, what I think Michelle and Patricia had originally thought of putting there was a lower planting, probably with some, sort of herbs and stuff that they would be using in the restaurant, that kind of thing. We were talking about the junipers across the back, that seems to be the answer for that one. But along that wall, that fence, I'm just not sure. I also worry that anything that grew above the fence line, some of the branches might begin to grow over the over the property line, and that would create another issue, which I would like to avoid if possible. We might be asking for more tourists than this is really, than that's worth.
Well, but if you use arborvitaes as an example, as far as that type of evergreen, they stay in a fairly conical shape, if you would, and they're only when they're fully grown, they only extend out about 4 feet in diameter. So they're not going to take up a tremendous amount of space.
I don't know what somebody sold me as arborvitae, but it's a lot wider than that.
Well, there are different, there's plenty of different varieties of plants.
Exactly,
I mean,
correct.
I could sit down with you, Jack, and tell you 10 different things.
Yes,
But
you
if
can.
you're saying, if you're estimating that the space between the west side property line and what is exhibited here as the gravel patio space is about 4 feet,
Yeah,
there are
that's
plenty
my
of things
guess.
that could fit in that would
Okay.
be able to be tall
Mhm.
and not take up such a considerable amount of
Mhm.
space or be so invasive
Mhm.
into the space.
Now, presumably, they would start smaller. I don't think we're gonna be able to go out and buy 15-foot junipers or arborvitae.
Good, they're expensive.
Well, I haven't.
We're gonna find them.
Well, does anybody want 15-foot arborvitae there on that wall? It's hard to believe.
All right,
I'm
all right.
just
So,
one person.
And for
Ray,
my
you're-
two
Your
cents
spitballing
is
is
that-
getting us in trouble here.
yeah, my 2 cents about, I don't know what exactly the utility is about, except for decor, which of course you're concerned about, but I don't see a privacy issue on the south border because there's nothing down there.
No, that's more for privacy and to make certain that people don't start using it as an entrance.
Right, okay,
It's to protect the Catholic Church property more than anything else.
I see, okay.
Because you know where that parking lot is at the Stissing Center. A lot of people are going to think, oh, we can just park back there and walk in the back. And no, they can't. We're just not going to do that. At one point, we thought about putting up a fence for that reason. But the more we thought about it, we figured that a planting would do the same thing.
Fair enough.
okay. So I'm a little forgetting now where we're at with getting this. So do I need a motion, Warren, for this?
Yeah, and it's getting pretty late and we have a couple other matters on the board, so on
Do I need a
the
motion
agenda.
to
So
hold-
why don't we just make a motion to continue the public hearing for June 23rd at 7:45.
Restaurant.
And in the meantime, I think it would be helpful if Mr. Banning would amend the site plan application to the best he can with the lighting and some plantings and other issues that we discussed tonight, so we could see that.
Well, I can do that. I'm just not sure I want to. Can I just indicate planting? Because at this point, we don't know. People have talked about 15-foot junipers and people talked about arborvitae. And can I just say planting along this area and planting along the back? And the lighting in the back is already on the site plan. It's just a question of Vicky's question about should we indicate the lights that are on the exterior that are
Yes.
existing and just say shaded?
One
or-
second, Jack, everyone else mute, please. I'm sorry.
Mute yourself. Are you muted?
No, Barbara Janoff's microphone is on.
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
No, I'm saying, tell me what to indicate on the site plan for the next meeting. We're happy to do it. But I just don't want to do something that's specific and then that gets changed and then we have to do it again. So if I can just indicate along that west wall, something in about 3.5 to 4 feet alongside it with a dotted line, it says planted, and across the back, the same thing, planted. And then as far as the pre-existing lights that are out there or what we're going to be using in the front or on the side, just indicate where they are and do the word shaded or something like that. Is that
Shaded
sufficient?
Or just then separately indicate, if you submit.
Sorry?
If you have new fixtures or shades you're gonna put on them, just a diagram or picture of them will be helpful.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Where they are on the building and then what you're gonna be using as a fixture.
Okay. We can do that.
Okay.
It might be also, Jack, it might be also, Mr. Banning, Jack. It might be
Jack,
helpful.
just fine, thank you.
It might be helpful if you took another look at the outdoor seating area. You mentioned that you might be able to narrow that and change the
Sure.
configuration.
Sure,
So
we can do
the
that.
way to change that configuration so it has less impact on the neighboring properties, it's farther away from the fence,
Sure.
that would be helpful.
Sure, we can do that.
And find out about the baffling, if you can do baffling or move the compressor inside, which is,
I'm gonna meet with Drew. I think he said tomorrow, or talk with Drew tomorrow, and whatever we come up with, will indicate on the site plan.
Right, and don't worry about printing physical copies until we're done, right? And then, then if it's once they're finalized, then you can worry about getting the copies after.
In other words, just get the one electronic copy to the secretary.
Does anyone from the board need to see a physical copy? No. So just an electronic copy until we're done, and then if it gets that point, then you provide for the copies for signing and etc. Okay.
Fine.
All right. Let's thank you very much, everyone, and from that meeting. Good night. Please log off. Please, if you're here for this first one, you can continue watching on YouTube, but if you could please leave the Zoom meeting, I'd appreciate it. So it's easier for us. Okay. Next one up is Capilano. Wait, Warren, we never finished voting. We keep trying to go to, we're holding over this public hearing until the 23rd of June at 7:45 p.m.
Right. Why don't you make a motion to that effect and have the board vote on it?
Yeah, someone make a motion?
I make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion to hold over the public hearing to the 23rd has passed. Next, on to the Capilano public hearing. I keep forgetting this. We have to vote to enter the public hearing, correct? Yes. Can I have a motion to enter? What's that? I'm sorry, to open the public hearing for the Capilano application.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in the public hearing for the Capilano application. Tricia, is someone speaking for the applicant? Do you want to pull up your own drawings or do you want us to pull it up?
Hi there, it's David Burke here. Thank you everyone for your time tonight. I'm the architect on the project representing Joyce Capilano and Chris Berardi. I have the site plan drawing that's been updated with me. I can share that now.
Please do, Tricia, let him share that.
I'm sorry, do you see it there?
We
Oh,
do.
no. You do see it, okay. Close that. This is our third meeting here. Would you like me to go through the plan for everyone?
Yes, for the public, please.
For the public, yes, okay. Okay, so what you see in front of you is the site plan for 3032 Church Street. The application is for site plan approval and for a public use, a special use permit for an accessory dwelling located to the back of the site. Here, if you can see my mouse, what's shown here is the footprint of the building. Currently, there's an existing home on the front side of the lot, bordering Church Street, and a framed shed. The proposal requests application for special use permit, and including in that, shown on the drawings, are the septic tank and leach field locations. You'll also see a pool proposed to the rear of the site, all of which falls within the zoning envelope and the setbacks. There's two existing structures here that will be demolished. They're close to falling down as it is. The existing driveway will be extended and to reach the rear of the property where the new structure will be placed. The structure is no more than 1,250 square feet, which is required for consideration of a special use permit. All utilities will enter off the street and run to the back of the property to the house. And I think that is the extent of the application.
Okay, one thing I did forget to do before we have the public speak, if there is anyone, Tricia, can you read the notice, please? That we published for this public hearing. Tricia, did you hear me? David, can you unshare your screen for a second?
Yes, I will do that, although I'm having a little bit of trouble. Oh, there it is. How was that?
Oh, we must have lost Tricia. All right, Warren, is it that big a deal we don't get that read in?
Yeah, where's Trish?
I don't know.
Sorry, I had to run out for a second.
That's all right. We need to read the notice. Can you please read the notice for the Capuano public hearing, please?
Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town of Pine Plains Planning Board on the 9th day of June, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. for the purpose of hearing all persons for or against the special use permit for an accessory dwelling submitted by Joyce Capuano and Chris Bellardi for a property located at 3032 Church Street, Town of Pine Plains, Dutchess County, State of New York, tax map number 6872-18-479155.
Anyone from the public looking to speak, can you either raise your hand or unmute yourself? I don't, are all these people, some of these people spoke on the last one. I don't know if you're here for this also, or you're just watching. We can start with just somebody unmuting and saying they want to speak, if there's anyone here to speak. And it looks like that's a negative. Okay. Oh, who's that? Oh, that. Anyone on the board? Do we have questions for the applicant? Or their representatives? Am I speaking here? Okay. Warren, all right, what do you have any comments, or Ray, do you have any comments?
I just had a question wondering the status on the health department approval.
I'm going to pitch that to the contractor, Dean. You're muted, Dean.
Still muted.
You just muted yourself again. You unmuted and remuted.
Same thing?
No, we got you.
Now you're good.
All right, the plan's going to be submitted to the Board of Health in about 2 weeks. We're just finishing it up now based on waiting for the final site plan. And then we'll move from there as quickly as we can.
Warren?
Okay, I'm fine with going to review of the part 2 of the environmental assessment form, if Trish could put that on.
One second.
Okay, everyone, you know how this goes. We're going to answer all the following questions using the information contained in part 1 and any material submitted by the project sponsor, otherwise available to the reviewer. When answering the questions, the reviewer will be guided by the concept, have my responses been reasonably reasonable considering the scale and context of the proposed action. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? My opinion, no. Anyone speak up if they disagree with any of the things I say. Will the proposed action, and by anyone, I mean members of the board, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public/private water supplies? No. Or a small impact. Will the proposed action impact existing public/private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Or small impact. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to the natural resources, example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Scroll, is there anything we have to scroll down there, please? Okay, yeah, we didn't want to answer anything moderate, etc. Check this box if you determine based on the information analysis above any supporting documentation that the proposed action may result in one or more. No. Check this box if you have determined based on the information analysis above and any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. I would say we were going to check that box. Does any board member have a problem with that? Warren, we don't vote on that, right? We just.
No, it's in the resolution. So it's essentially, unless anybody disagrees with the part 2 analysis, the board is basically determining that there's no significant environmental impacts associated with this project, and a draft environmental impact statement need not be prepared.
Okay, does anyone have any issues with that? All right. Now we close the public hearing now, Lauren?
Yes.
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion to close the public hearing has passed and is hereby closed. All right, so we have, Warren, we have a proposed.
Yes, I have, based upon the previous planning board meetings and discussions about the project, I have prepared a proposed resolution approving the special use permit and site plan application for this property pursuant to section 275-56D of the zoning law. I don't know if Tricia wants to read it or whether we should just, could you put the resolution on and we can just go over each point? So.
Okay, so I don't have to read it. We just put it on the screen and that's.
Let's put it on the screen, and who has the energy to read it? Either, I guess I can if you like.
I can do it if you want.
Okay.
Town of Pine Plains Planning Board, resolution approving special use permit and site plan application for property located at 3032 Church Street, Pine Plains, New York, for an accessory dwelling on the site pursuant to section 275-56D with conditions. Whereas Joyce Capilano and Chris Bellardi, hereafter known as the applicants, have submitted an application to the Town of Pine Plains Planning Board dated March 31st, 2021, seeking approval for special use permit and site plan approval for an accessory dwelling on their property located at 3032 Church Street, Pine Plains, New York. And whereas the property is located in the town's HMS zoning district, in which an accessory dwelling is permitted pursuant to the provisions of section 275-56D1 of the zoning code, subject to the issuance of a special use permit and site plan review approval by the planning board. And whereas the applicants have submitted in support of their application a site plan and special permit application together with part 1 of a short environmental assessment form, which were reviewed by the planning board at its April 14th, 2021 meeting, whereas the original site plan has been amended and superseded by an amended site plan dated May 20th, 2021, and was further amended by a site plan dated June 5th, 2021. And whereas the application was scheduled for a public hearing, and that's a typo, it's June 9th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. And whereas the public hearing was duly noticed as required by the Town of Pine Plains Code, and whereas the planning board at its May 26, 2021 meeting reviewed the application and approved the part 1 of the short form, at its meeting reviewed the application and approved the part 1 of the short form environmental assessment form and declared this to be an unlisted action, with the planning board acting as lead agency for the environmental review of this action. And whereas notice of the meeting was duly published and notice was provided to neighboring property owners as required by the Pine Plains zoning code. And whereas the application, together with the site plan and the part 1 of the short environmental assessment form, have been forwarded to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for its review and comment pursuant to section 239M of the general municipal law. And whereas the site plan was amended and proposes the creation of a new accessory building cottage to the, actually, can you go back down? Can you scroll back to the last whereas? Warren, do we have to say that they said it was local concern, or we don't worry about that?
I think I put that in there, but let's see if we got to it.
Okay. Whereas the site plan as amended proposes the creation of a new accessory building cottage to the rear of the main house on the property, consisting of approximately 1,250 square feet, together with a pool and other accessory structures. And whereas section 275-56D1B provides in relevant part that the principal dwelling on a lot on which an accessory dwelling is proposed to be located be owner occupied for the duration of the special use permit. And whereas the applicants have requested the planning board grant a waiver of the requirement of principal dwelling on the lot be owner occupied for the duration of the special use permit pursuant to the standards set forth in section 155G3 of the town code. And whereas the applicants have advised the planning board that the principal dwelling at the subject property has been inhabited for many years and is currently unsuitable for occupancy as a residence. And whereas the applicants have represented to the planning board that is their intention to live in the accessory dwelling when completed and thereafter oversee the renovation of the principal residence on the property. And whereas the applicants have amplified their waiver request to indicate that they are seeking a waiver of the requirement that the principal residence be owner occupied, but that it is their intention to reside in either accessory dwelling unit or principal dwelling for the duration of the special permit. And whereas a public hearing on the application was opened on June 9th, again, let's fix that typo, at which time a presentation was made by the applicants and the public was permitted to comment on the said application. And whereas the site plan application has been reviewed by the planning board and by the engineer for the town, and whereas the planning board has reviewed the part 2 of the short form environmental assessment form, and there's another typo right there, if we could fix that, Tricia, and was determined that this action does not have the potential for one or more significant adverse environmental impacts, and that as a result, no draft environmental impact statement shall be required. And whereas the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development has indicated that this is a matter of local concern, and whereas the engineer for the town has advised the planning board that the proposed accessory dwelling and the site plan meet the requirements of section 275-56D1 of the town code, and whereas 275-56G3 provides in relevant part that the planning board may waive any specific requirements set forth in section 275-56 for the approval of special use permit, provided that the planning board finds the compliance with the requirements does not requisite in the interest or not requisite in the interest of public health, safety, and general welfare, and are inappropriate to the particular special use permit. And whereas the planning board has determined the town zoning review committee has recommended or will be recommending to the town board as an amendment to the town zoning code that the accessory use provision contained in the zoning code be amended to provide that either the principal or accessory dwelling shall be occupied during the term of the special use permit. And whereas the planning board has determined that given the current condition of the principal residence, the applicant's intention to reside in the accessory dwelling unit while the principal residence is rehabilitated, and the fact that the principal residence is at this time not habitable, strict compliance with the owner occupancy provision of the code is not requisite in the interest of the public safety and welfare, and or would be inappropriate under the current circumstances. And whereas the planning board has determined, based on the advice of its engineer and its own study of the facts, that the application for an accessory dwelling meets the special use permit requirements of Article 11 of the zoning code, and that the site plan meets the requirements of Article 12 of the zoning code. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the planning board hereby grants site plan and special permit approval to Joyce Capuano and Chris Bellardi for construction of an accessory dwelling on their property located at 3032 Church Street, Pine Plains, New York, subject to the following conditions. Hold on. The applicants provide proof satisfactory to the town engineer, to the building inspector, of the approval of the on-site septic system for the principal and accessory residence by the Dutchess County Department of Health prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy for the accessory dwelling unit. During the term of the special use permit, either the principal residence or the accessory dwelling shall be owner occupied. That the code enforcement officer shall have the authority to revoke the certificate of occupancy and or the special use permit in the event that the provisions of this resolution are violated by the property owners, and that all permit fees and escrow charges be paid by the applicants prior to the issuance of any building permit for the accessory dwelling. Okay, so can I have a motion by for the board to accept this resolution as read?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we're gonna do a voice vote here. So, Dick, how do you vote?
Yay.
Ken?
Yay.
Kate?
Yay.
Steve?
Yes.
Peter?
Peter had to leave.
Vicky?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So let it be shown that the resolution passed unanimously based on the members still here. All right, you can unshare that, please. And okay, so you guys can now get that to the Department of Health, and maybe that'll they'll be looking for that we approved it. Tricia will have it finished, typed up, and signed tomorrow. And she'll email you a copy. Mrs. Capilano, are you still there?
I am. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience with the process, and welcome to the community, and good luck with your projects.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good night. Next up was, what was next up, Tricia? Was the, I guess the Stissing Farms?
Stissing Farms, yes.
Okay, who's here from Stissing Farms? Okay, there's Lou. Mr. Reynolds, and Mr. First, okay? I guess, what do we want to do here, Warren? We want to just talk about where we're at with this, or what do we want to do?
Well, basically, I'll just give you an update on this. This is an application that goes back to 2003 for site plan review of the senior residential development, at that time consisting of 49 attached dwelling units. And over the years, since that time, there have been several applications by the property owner for amendment of the site plan, which have been granted by the planning board after the conduct of a public hearing. And I prepared a resolution detailing the history of all of those amendments and the public hearings and the action taken. And now the applicant has made application to the planning board for a further amendment of the site plan, which would basically convert back to the project from what had been changed to a residential rental age restricted development now to the original condominium development. We have asked Ray to review the application materials and to communicate with the applicant's engineers. And Ray has provided a report to the planning board, and I'll leave it to Ray. Maybe Ray could go over that and the phasing plan that has been developed for this project.
Ray, you're muted.
My apologies. So I did provide a correspondence to the planning board, and the correspondence is based on an initial site visit with the applicant and their engineer, and then also a follow-up based on the as-built that was received by the applicant's engineer. And I provided a bit of a punch list of items that still need to be completed, which follows through based on the past history of the project. But then also, because of the amount of time that has lapsed since those initial improvements were made, there's quite a bit of numerous maintenance and damaged infrastructure items that need to be addressed. So those are all outlined in my June 2nd correspondence. So again, unless the planning board has any comments on those specifically, they're pretty straightforward. What I had done from that was to go back to the original bond estimate that was prepared for the project, and then have updated that bond estimate. Again, the bond is to cover the common infrastructure items for the overall project. And the bond estimate has been updated to not only reflect the increase in construction costs, because again, the last time it was updated was back in, I believe, 2008, if I remember correctly. But we updated the cost based on more current costs for construction, but then also added the components associated with the maintenance items and damaged items that need to be repaired as well. So the new bond estimate that I recommend for the planning board is $368,200 to be considered. In addition to that, the applicant had provided a proposed phasing plan, And Tricia, I'm wondering if you might be able to bring that particular phasing plan, that document up so we can review that with the board? Thank you. Excellent. So the applicant's engineer had put together this proposed phasing plan that's been formally submitted to the planning board. They are proposing a total of 7 phases as the overall build out of the project. Phase 1 consists of building out I'm going to call it the top of the hill, if you would, as far as completing those particular buildings and those units in their entirety. I'm going to call it the reconstruction of the emergency access road. The original emergency access road was roughed in, but quite a bit of time has lapsed again since that original construction. It's now overgrown, so that'll have to be touched up as far as placing new gravel materials down. They'll need to install the gate that's required as well. And then there's also an additional part of that phase 1, which is the construction of an additional building with 4 units that's located at a cul-de-sac, kind of towards the northeast portion of the property on the lower area. From there, they go to phase 2, which consists of buildings located on the lower area, both onto the right and left of the existing set of buildings that were part of the original construction. From there, they go to phase 4, which would be paving the the cul-de-sac heading up to the hill and that roadway, along with the improvements associated with the damage components within the roadway itself. Phase 5 is the lower roadway portion. Phase 6 is then phase 5, my apologies. Phase 6 would then be the lower buildings behind the commercial building that has the VA in it, as well as the liquor store. And then we start looking at phase 7, which is the actual entrance to the parcel as far as the access road. And that portion actually will be milled of the existing asphalt because it's been broken up over the years. They're going to place a new binder course and then the final top course over the entire site. So that generally outlines it. Again, the plan that was submitted does provide a legend over on the left-hand side of the drawing that details each one of the components associated with the overall phasing plan. So I've reviewed the phasing plan. The phasing plan is methodical and as they would basically build their way out of the site. So it does make sense. So again, it's for the board to consider whether they're satisfied with the phasing as well.
Ray, is there a time estimate of what it would take from phase 1 to phase 7?
I leave that to the applicant as far as based on their construction schedule.
We believe that, am I off mute? Let me just make sure. Yes, okay. We believe that the process from day 1 to the end of phase 7 will take us approximately 15 months.
I think Michael's away for a moment. There he is.
There we go. I don't. Does anyone else have any questions around it? Can we unshare the screen then if we're not going to be talking to this? All right. So yeah, in my opinion, I know the applicant is anxious to get going, but at every step, this application, in previous incarnations of it, has had a public hearing, and I'm of the opinion that they should have a public hearing, and I believe Warren also agrees with that, and any of the board want to speak on that or agree or disagree with that contention?
Oh, I think something of this magnitude in our community definitely should have a public hearing. I think a lot of people weren't aware that it was even going to be continued as a project.
Yeah, it's been sitting there dormant for a long time. I think somebody, I think might have been Warren, pointed out that this is the largest project in the town next to like the Durst project. So it's a significant project for us. So we definitely want to do it thoroughly. So Warren, how do you recommend proceeding at this point?
Yes, I had recommended, obviously, that we do conduct a public hearing as we had in the past. I had originally suggested that we hold a public hearing on June 23rd, but I don't think Tricia feels that she'll be able to get the notices out in sufficient time for that public hearing. So the next available date for the public hearing would be on July 14th.
Is it at all possible?
If I could say, yeah, we could do the mailings if it makes it easier for Tricia. We'd be happy to do the mailings and kind of take that on, and even help with the publication in the local paper.
Well, actually, our zoning code requires the applicant to give the notices. If you feel that you can do that in sufficient time for a public hearing on the 23rd, I have no objection to having the public hearing on the 23rd, if the board members feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, what is our deadline for the mailing and stuff?
You have to take a look at our code, but I think the for this is a site plan approval, so it would be 10 days notice of publication, and the property owners, adjoining property owners within 200 feet, I believe, need to be notified 5 days in advance of the public hearing.
Okay.
That's why I thought
we'd be happy to
maybe
take
July
that
14th might be an easier date for us to meet.
I'm assuming my client, I'm sure Lou has no problem with us taking that on, correct, Lou?
No problem at all. I welcome it.
So we'll coordinate with Tricia and Warren, and whatever we need to do, we'll do in the next couple of days.
Okay, the other point in my resolution was I believe the matter should be referred to Dutchess County Planning for a 239M review and comment. It's quite possible that they don't care to comment on this. They may consider it a matter of local concern, but I think we should send the resolution that I prepared together with the, I have found the original environmental assessment forms and negative declaration. That should be also sent down to county planning. And I think the resolution that I prepared will give county planning a full history of this application together with the seeker determinations and Ray's letter and the new phasing plan.
Okay, I mean, you asking us, Warren, or what? what we
I think that's it. I mean, I basically prepared a lengthy resolution. I don't know if you need to go over it because it gives a history of the application, and I've annexed to the resolution the the phasing plan and Ray's letter. Couple of questions for the applicant, and we could deal with it offline or at the next meeting. I think we have to change the manner of the performance bond. I'm not happy with having that money held at Salisbury Bank, so I could talk with Mr. First about converting this to either a cash deposit or some other form of surety. So we're going to want to change that. And of course, the amount has to be increased in accordance with Ray's recommendation.
That's fine. We can have that conversation outside of this meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have prepared the resolution. I don't think we have to go through the long and tortured history of this application, but the whereas clauses basically indicate that we are going to conduct a public hearing on this application on June 23rd
Say,
at 8 o'clock.
yes, let's say 8 o'clock. I mean, it'd probably be a little later, but that's,
Okay,
we don't want to have a gap, but I mean, I'm sure there won't be.
okay.
The other one.
And
Based upon your meeting tonight, I have a feeling 8 o'clock will be kind of early.
if we can get finished by 8:30, that would be a blessing.
Yes.
We do have the Durst project on first. That's a major project. I don't think that'll take too long. And then we have the continuation of the other application. And I will discuss with Tricia the forwarding of all the documents onto county planning. It's quite possible they may not want to see it, but I'll check with them and we'll see what they have to say.
So we need a motion to accept the resolution that was circulated for having a public hearing on June 23rd, 2021 at 8 p.m. Remotely via Zoom, and to submit the application for a 239M review to the county. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, Steve, a second. Okay, we need to do a voice vote. Dick,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. I didn't skip anything.
Okay, and the record should also reflect that the applicant and Mr. First will be contacting Tricia to coordinate the notices as required by our code of the public hearing. What's going on?
All right. Till then.
Does anybody have any questions before we sign off? Okay.
Thank you. And I just want to say one thing. I just want to make it clear for the record too, that there's actually going to be no changes to the site plan. So that way, if there's members of the public that are just hearing this for the first time, the site plan itself, whatever was approved back in 2003 is staying the same. Just there's some conditions that we need to clean up. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. I know this is a big project, but it was approved many years ago, and we're just trying to build what was approved many years ago. So thank you for your time. I know it's a long night. I hope you guys are finished soon. Thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Have a good night.
Before we leave, does the board have anything, questions
wait.
of me or,
What happened to Mr. Birch? Is he not here?
I'm sorry.
We had Mr. Birch. Birch.
Oh, great. Yes. Oh, my God. All right.
So Michael, Mr. Birch had asked.
I'm here.
Yeah.
It says Barbara Janoff,
Oh, okay.
but it's really David Birch. That's my wife's name.
We're all still awake.
I don't see him. Let me go to this.
I don't see myself either.
I
see
see
you all.
Barbara Janoff.
I see all you guys.
Got it. So he has no camera, I guess. So that's.
No, we got a camera, but I don't know.
It's fine.
Doesn't seem to be functioning.
But
Sometimes, do you have a laptop?
No, it's a desktop with a separate camera.
Can't help it.
well,
Sometimes
do we
there's a little
have-
tab.
Do we have the your amended map? So this is a preliminary discussion for a major subdivision based upon the last map that you sent us. Do we have that, Tricia, that we could put up? All right.
So just by way of history, if you look at parcels 7, 6, and 5, that was part of a subdivision that was approved maybe 10 years ago and never implemented. If you see this little line was the old property line, And I recently acquired this property here with all the frontage, which enables the 7-lot subdivision that I'm proposing. I think the question is whether or not a conservation subdivision makes sense for this particular property. I don't, this is along Bean River Road. It's in a hamlet zoning, so that technically the zoning, I believe, is half acre. But it's really a rural area that adjoins the town of Ankram. And I'm thinking that this kind of subdivision really fits in with the character of the road. Down at the bottom of 199 and Bean River, there are a few houses that are close together and trailers and so on where hamlet zoning and possibly business would make sense. But it seems to me that as you move up Bean River Road, it's really more like a rural area where a few houses would make sense in terms of a subdivision. I don't really see how a conservation subdivision would add anything to that. I believe it's up to the board to determine whether or not they want to require a conservation subdivision.
Okay, is that accurate? I don't know who wants to speak on that, Drew or Warren. That's a up to the board decision with a major subdivision in, this is the Bean River hamlet.
Bean River Road, it's hamlet zone.
Right, the Bean River, well, I mean, that's, okay.
Well, I can speak to that a little bit. So yeah, I did confirm, this is Ray. So I did confirm that it is located within the Pulvers Corners hamlet zone. So it is a hamlet zone. And under chapter 275-30, under the design standards, within the hamlet area, there are both conventional and conservation subdivisions are both allowed. Okay. The applicant, you mentioned the fact that parcel 5, 6, and 7 were part of a previous subdivision that was approved. I was looking up on parcel access. I didn't see any record that that was actually filed. Do you?
That's correct. It was never really filed. It was approved by the planning board, but we never really filed it at the time. It was not the actually partial 5. It was partial 5, 4, 3, 2. It was a 16-acre parcel. It was the third lot in the subdivision. It was a 3-lot subdivision that was approved. But because of the limited frontage, that was the only feasible way to do it. There's the existing driveway that feeds the house that's on parcel 6. And there's another house on parcel 1. I met with the highway department and they're saying that the only places for access are the existing driveway and the existing driveway down here on parcel 1 in terms of sight distance.
Isn't there a house on parcel 1 currently?
Correct. Upon part of parcel 1.
Is there a reason why it's not shown on the plan?
The surveyor didn't put it on.
Okay. Does it cross onto parcel number 2? Kind of an important
yes,
feature
it
to have
does.
on
The existing lot. You see where this line is here?
Well, I see that. I know there's parcel 1 and parcel 2, and it looks as though there's a building or a house somewhere in that general vicinity.
On parcel 1. On parcel 1. That house is currently on a approximately 4-acre lot that goes along this line.
No, understood. Yeah, I understand.
All
there's
that
two
frontage.
parcels. Yeah, I understand there are 2 parcels.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously that, well, number 1, that should be shown on the plan as far as
Sure.
house. It's kind of an important feature to have
Sure.
on a subdivision map.
Sure.
The other question that I have, Warren, is I'm not sure within the town, well, within the local law, as far as zoning, if there's any sunset clauses as far as the fact that the subdivision, although it may have been approved by the planning board, the fact that it wasn't filed with the county.
Yeah, that's expired. If it,
Yeah,
yeah.
So
Yeah,
now,
I think we're applying for a new subdivision.
Okay,
It's a
so
new
I-
subdivision.
make
There's
sure
no
that-
existing subdivision.
okay, so I just want to make sure that that's clear to everyone. That's the way I interpreted it as well. Just want to make sure
Yeah.
everybody's on board. with
Yes, I think that's clear.
So under chapter 275-30, there is a footnote for the subdivisions, and it indicates that no more than 4 lots may be subdivided from a parent parcel as a conservation subdivision. So that means that based on this parcel, that you couldn't have more than what would appear to be 4 lots.
On which parcel?
The main parcel.
Where is that, Ray?
Chapter 275-30, under the design standards, subdivision design standards.
Could you repeat that, Ray? I didn't quite get it.
Yeah. It is 275-30.
The wording of it?
Tricia, can you provide me with access to share the screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Oh.
Let me stop sharing this one, then I'll have to stop.
Bear with me. Everyone see that? Can you see my screen now?
We do, yes, sorry.
All right, so under the 275-30 design standards, so it does provide for the types of subdivisions allowed. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. The important item here is when you see this type of subdivision, there's this little footnote 2. But again, we're into the hamlet districts, major 5 or more lots, indicating that both a conventional and a conservation subdivision are both allowed. However, when you look at that type of subdivision, number 2, footnote number 2, and I go down, it does indicate here that, again, under footnote 2, no more than 4 lots may be subdivided in the form of a conventional subdivision from any parent parcel on the effective date of this zoning law, and any subsequent subdivision of land shall be designed as a conservation subdivision and adhered to the requirements of 275-31G.
But we have two parcels here.
Right, but the question would be then, even if you tried to subdivide each one of those separately, you still would not be able to meet a total of 7 parcels. I think perhaps even that's interpretation met perhaps by the code enforcement officer.
Can I?
Could you just scroll down again? I just want to, I'm trying to understand what the, so parent parcel, okay, thank you.
No more than 4. If he has 2 parcels, why couldn't he do 8?
Yes, there are 2 parcels, so I would think that footnote says I could do 8 parcels. And it's a half-acre zone over there. There are 2 parent parcels, not 1.
Well, I'm trying to understand the purpose of this. I guess it's just to force conservation subdivisions whenever possible, basically.
Correct. Yeah, obviously the zoning was in part created to try to promote conservation type subdivisions.
But in this particular situation, it doesn't seem to me to make a lot of sense to try to do that. Conventional subdivision would seem to me to be very applicable, with each lot being about 3 acres. Got 24 acres with 2 parcels.
So one of the things within the design standards also is that the planning board does have the option, and the applicant may need to show what the benefits are of a conservation, or my apologies, a conventional subdivision is versus a conservation subdivision. That's also outlined within the design standards. I don't know, as the applicant, whether have you looked at the design standards?
Yeah.
Because it does specifically identify that as well.
So even though that footnote's there, we do have the option to waive that?
Again, I'd like to at least get the opinion of Drew as far as, one parcel is a fairly large parcel and the other one is extremely small.
Oh, it's
only-
almost 4 acres.
Only like 4 acres in that area.
What are the sizes of the 2 parent parcels?
Um,
One is 19 and one is 4.
Yep.
So the question being, is he allowed to address both of those as parent parcels, right? Or
Yeah, and what does that mean based on the zoning law, the way it's written, does that mean that he has the opportunity of a total of 8?
I would think so, yes.
Okay. All right. So again, then that being the case, there are, again, conventional is acceptable as well as conservation. And under the design standards, it indicates that the planning board does have the ability of requesting additional consideration of a conservation subdivision, and for the applicant to provide, if you would, a benefit analysis of why it may be beneficial to divide this as a traditional, if you would, a traditional conventional subdivision versus a conservation.
All right, I don't see any particular benefit that would adhere. Is the only
Well, you have to show that, what it's saying is you have to tell us the benefit of why conventional would be better.
right.
So compare the, and then, I guess you got to go through those requirements and see,
And then the planning board number 1 can decide whether it wants to consider moving forward with the traditional, if you would, as far as the conventional subdivision. And then we can start looking at the actual layout that's been provided by the applicant and continue a review along that route. Again, I think it's important if the planning board wishes to look at the option of what a conservation subdivision may look like out there.
Yeah, I think we have to see the difference. I think we need
Right.
to see both of them. I mean, what do you guys, anyone want to pipe up and have any comment on that? I agree with what they're saying, that we should probably see and be able to compare so we can determine what the impacts would be of either way to go.
Can we require that we see both options with a conservation design and plus the one he's just shown us?
I think
Based
we
on-
have to, in order
Based
to,
on the way I read the subdivision standards, that the planning board can request that.
yeah, before we even make the determination of which one he would go with, right?
Correct.
So that's like.
I mean,
step
if you're talking about a conservation subdivision, it could go, I would think, 50 different ways. I mean, it depends how you would set it up. I mean, there's tremendous amount of discretion on how you would create a conservation subdivision. I don't even, you have to determine what areas you would put in conservation and how you would limit the size of the lots. I mean, there are so many possibilities. I don't understand how I could really give you one option. That's a
Actually, if you go,
conservation.
so that brings up a good point. So if you go into Appendix B of the design standards, there's an outline of the design standards for conservation type subdivisions. That'll provide you some additional guidance as well. And that's one of the reasons, you're right, that's one of the reasons that there's standards, and it's to provide the ability of various options for a conservation subdivision. That's one of the nice things of conservation subdivisions versus conventional subdivisions.
But I mean, there are all kinds of options. How am I going to determine what kind of options to propose to you? I have no idea.
Perhaps you may want to hire a professional that would assist you in
I was
that
just going to
matter.
suggest, I think you're going to need to go back to the drawing board and hire a professional engineer to help you with this subdivision. I don't think we can guide you through this process.
Well, no, I mean, I think the preliminary decision has to be made as to whether it's a conventional, whether you approve a conventional or whether you want a conservation subdivision. If you want a conservation subdivision, then I have to hire somebody to come up with various plans, I guess. But I mean, it's not as if a conservation subdivision is one specific thing.
No, that's correct. It's not. Right. There are various types.
There are innumerable possibilities.
Right. Therein lies one
So
of the.
I've got to hire somebody to come up with 10 different conservation possibilities, and then you're going to compare it to the conventional option? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, we haven't asked you to do 10 different variations. We've asked you to come up with a potential for a conservation type subdivision. So that way it can be compared to the conventional subdivision. Just like you've proposed a conventional subdivision here. There are 10 different types of layouts that you could do a conventional subdivision. You've provided one, which is fantastic. That's great. And that's all we're asking on the conservation area, conservation type subdivision, something similar. This isn't the only way you could do a conventional subdivision, this layout.
Well, it's essentially, it more or less is.
No, it's not.
It's the sensible one.
I mean, I guess the bottom line is we have to have something to compare to. We can't just like, see what the code says. I mean, it's basically forcing us to conservation subdivision unless you could give us, an example and why, I guess, that would indicate why we would choose otherwise. But, I mean, it's fairly clear with that footnote. I mean, we have to follow what's in there. So.
Okay, so I've got to come back to you with an alternative design using a conservation subdivision.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
And please take a look at Appendix B of the zoning code, which provides for the design standards for conservation subdivisions.
Okay.
And that's why we have this preliminary discussion in order.
Yeah, but my understanding is that the board would consider the conventional subdivision and then decide whether or not that was appropriate. And if it wasn't appropriate, then, go to a conservation subdivision. But you're asking me to come up with a proposed conservation subdivision so that you can compare the two, I guess.
Correct. I mean,
Yeah. That's a possible way to go. Okay, so I know what I have to do.
All right. We can, I guess, unshare this now. Right?
Yep. I'll stop sharing.
We have anything more on the agenda?
Well, that's it. Well, thank you. Yeah. So you know what you have to do, and then I guess, interface with Drew, and then when you're ready, and then we'll bring it back before us, and then we'll look towards heading to making a determination of which we want to hear from you. You know, which type of subdivision we're going to entertain.
Okay,
Thank you for sticking out to this time.
it was a long evening for all of us.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
All right. And as far as the board is concerned, we're not doing any more business tonight. I think that's it, right, Tricia? That's it for the agenda. And
I mean, if you want to be technical, there's minutes.
no, we're not doing that. All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Night,
Keep
everyone.
well.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.